everyone. Welcome to the Board of Selectmen meeting. Tonight is Tuesday, October 16th, 2018. If I could ask everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, I believe we have a couple of amendments to the agenda.
Madam Chair, if the board would entertain under the town manager's report, adding an item 6, which is a discussion on the November BOS meeting schedule. And then also, Mr. Ed Starzyk is coming from another meeting, so he will probably be closer to 8 o'clock.
Okay, yeah, we can roll him after you if needed. Okay. Yeah, I think that covered to my knowledge. Did you have anything?
I have no other changes.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to accept the agenda as adjusted.
Okay, seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
And the chair says aye. Before I get to the other announcements, Mr. Hillman will not be here tonight. Mr. Hillman is preparing for surgery, so we will not see him until probably December. He's hoping to join us at town meeting next week, but he hasn't been able to 100% confirm. Everything's fine. He just wanted all of you to know that he is not going to be present definitely for the month of November. He hopefully, if he can physically join us on the first meeting in December, he will. Otherwise, he might remote call in, but he will definitely be with us on the second meeting in December. Okay? So just wanted to let everyone know. So we'll miss him, but we wish him well, and he'll be back with us soon. Okay? As far as other announcements, the upcoming general election will be held on Tuesday, November 6th, 2018 in the Great Hall from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. The last day to register to vote to participate in this election, if you haven't already, is Wednesday, October 17th until 8 p.m. Absentee ballots are now available. Please contact the town clerk's office for more information. The last day to request an absentee ballot is Monday, November 5th, 2018. Early voting for the upcoming November 6, 2018 election will begin on October 22nd and continue through November 2nd, 2018 in all Massachusetts cities and towns. Early voting can be done in person or by mail. For the voters' convenience, normal business hours have been extended to include Saturday, October 27th, 9 a.m. through 1 p.m. in Ayer. Please take advantage of this early voting opportunity and contact Susan Copeland, Ayer Town Clerk, at 978-772-8215 with any questions. And I believe that is all of the announcements that I have. So, Selectman Hood, please take over.
Do you want to give a few more minutes?
Oh.
Can we? Do you want to do public input first? Please.
We will do that. Let me get a cough drop. Do we have anyone here for public input? Okay. Oh, I did forget to announce tonight's student reporter is Bryce Valari. Welcome. I remember you.
Bryce.
So, if it's all right, we'll give him a few more minutes and we'll move on to other things. And when he arrives, we'll hop back into it. How's that? Okay. Robert, I believe you're Alan tonight.
Yes. Madam Chair, Selectman Hood, you have in your packet a CPA grant agreement between the Town of Ayer's CPC committee and Mr. Calvin Moore of Cowfield Realty Trust, who is the owner of the historic Central Fire Station. As the board is aware, all of the community preservation funded projects enter into a grant agreement with the CPC, which you have in your packet. This one is for $30,000. This $30,000 had been previously approved by the Ayer Town meeting and is being transferred to this project. It had been approved for this project as well, as the board is aware. So we're respectfully requesting a motion to approve with signature by the chair.
Seems pretty straightforward. Any questions?
I agree. I have no questions. I'll make a motion to approve a $30,000 CPA grant between the town of Ayer and Cowfield Realty Trust 2 as presented to the Board of Selectmen
With signature by the chair.
with signature by the chair.
Okay. Seconded. All in favor? Scott?
Aye.
Chair says aye. Okay.
Madam Chair, if I could just add, per Mr. Minoyan, work has started on the historic fire station. You may have noticed the repointing of the brick is underway. Some other efforts to seal the cornice and so forth are also going to happen before winter. So he has started work on the project.
I saw the video that Alan posted, so, yep, that's good. It's nice to see some activity going on over there. Okay, so we'll go on to the next thing. Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay. All right.
He has a very important job, we all understand.
It does, he does. So, you know, we're all for him having a job, and he's running a bit late, but that's okay, we can roll with it. So, all right. We have Mr. Chairman Thomas F. Gibson from the Middlesex County Retirement Board.
Good evening.
Good evening.
And you just use these to go back
Thank you.
and forth.
Thank you. I believe I'm going to be joined by Kevin Johnston.
All right.
And also with me tonight is Chief Administrative Officer of the Middlesex County Retirement System, Lisa Maloney, who has chosen to stay in the front row. And when I need some support, however, I will be turning to her. So thank you for the invitation to speak to the Board of Selectmen. Last time we were here was in May of 2015, if I remember correctly, and I believe you were, I don't know if you were chairman at that time.
I think I might have been, yeah.
But I know Mr. Hillman was, Mr. Hood is a new member. And we've been here since a couple of times to Ayer. The town manager and Kevin have been kind to offer the services of the Great Hall, where we've had educational presentations to our members and beneficiaries for the geographical area. Most recently in September, we were out here, and again last year we were here as well. In the spring, we did a special presentation down at the police station for and a particular issue involving beneficiaries of members of the retirement system, and that was well attended as well. So we've been not frequent flyers to Ayer, but we've been here enough times over the past several years, and it's always nice to come. So I have a PowerPoint slide here to sort of go through some issues. I know I'm allotted 20 minutes, I think, so I've had some caffeine, so I'll try to speak very fast. There's a lot of information on the PowerPoint. Some of it I'll spend more time on than others. And of course, at any time, if someone has a question, just please jump right in. So this is what we're going to talk about, a little introduction. I'm going to talk about the assets that we have in the Middlesex County Retirement System and our investments. Contribution rates our employees make, and what regular compensation is, what part of their pay goes into their pension calculations, and finally the town of Ayer contributions and benefits to give you a flavor of who's receiving what in retirement payments. Also, there's a separate handout that was given to you, which is the what is called the funding schedule for the Middlesex County Retirement System, which we will be referencing during the presentation. So, as you know, Massachusetts is a non-Social Security state. We're one of 12 pure non-Social Security states. There are 15 total, where 3 of them are a hybrid. So neither the public employees nor the public employers contribute to Social Security. Instead, we have our own separate retirement system. Those employees who do contribute to Social Security, who may be eligible based on earnings in covered employment, would be subject to what they call the windfall elimination provision and the government pension offset, which in most cases would reduce the amount of the Social Security that they are receiving. There are 104 separate retirement systems within the Commonwealth of Mass, and the Middlesex County retirement system is the 4th largest behind the state teachers and the city of Boston. So we're, by Massachusetts standards, a large system. The retirement plan for all of the members of the system and for all of the government sponsors is in the form of a statute, Chapter 32 of the Massachusetts General Laws. That contains all of the benefits, the investments, the accounting, the record-keeping requirements that binds all of the retirement boards. And that's why every time they want to make a change to the retirement plan, it has to be done by the legislature because it's in the form of a state statute. Every retirement system has a retirement board consisting of 5 members, and the Middlesex County Retirement Board is myself. Brian Curtin is the town treasurer in Burlington. He's an elected member of the advisory council, by the way, which all the town treasurers belong to, including Barbara Tierney, who's here today. She's a member of our advisory council. Kevin Johnson is an advisor to the advisory council and shows up at all our meetings anyway. Even when I don't invite him, he shows up. We have 2 elected members, and this is, by the way, this is what the statute calls for the composition of the retirement system. So Joseph Kearns is an active fire captain in the town of Tewksbury. John Brown is a retired fire lieutenant from the town of Wilmington. Our appointed member, what they call a 5th member, is Bob Healy, who is a retired city manager from the city of Cambridge, and I'm sure Bob is familiar with Mr. Healy and his decades of service as a town manager in Massachusetts in the city of Cambridge. And of course, last but not least, Lisa Maloney is our chief administrative officer, and she's really the one who makes everything go smoothly. And I would say she's doing a great job. We have 10,000 active employees in the retirement system and 5,900 folks who are getting a check from us, either as retirees or survivors or beneficiaries. We also have 2,300 inactive members, and those are folks who were in public service, joined the retirement system, and then left public service to either go into the private sector or to stay home, raise a family, or for whatever reason go back to school. And those folks have left their retirement contributions with the retirement system, and now they are inactive members. They may come back at some time and reactivate their public service and become a member again, active member of the retirement system, or they may just come in at some point in time and take their money out. If they have 10 years of service, however, and they are inactive, when they reach age 55, they would be entitled to receive a retirement allowance under the plan. We have 71 governmental units in our retirement system, including 31 towns like Ayer, 20 housing authorities, 9 school districts, and 9 water districts. So it's a pretty wide variety of different governmental employers that we deal with. Of course, every of the 31 municipalities, each one has their own police and fire department as well. The assets, so the town of Ayer, we have 182 active and inactive members and 76 retired members and beneficiaries. Those are folks actually receiving checks every single month from the Middlesex County Retirement System. Talking about our assets and investments, as of August, which is the last month we have up-to-date numbers on, we had $1.4 billion in assets. That's the money that we have to pay our retirement obligations. And we get that money from 3 different sources. We get it from the members' contributions, from the governmental appropriations from the town of Ayer, and our investment returns. That's the only 3 sources of revenue that a retirement system has in Massachusetts. And this is a study that was done in up to 2014 to show in Massachusetts as a whole where the money comes from to pay retirement allowances to public employees. And as you can see, the investment earnings make up almost a half of that pot of revenue. Employer contributions almost a third, and the employee contributions a little bit over 20%. We're waiting for those numbers to be updated as of 2016. That should be coming out any day now. Our growth of our assets in the county system was right on track. In 2007, we were on a nice trajectory, and as you know, in 2008, the worldwide market collapsed, where we lost about 22 to 24% of our assets. We weren't alone in that. It's cold comfort that others lost more, some lost less. We all lost money on our individual retirement accounts as well. But we've been climbing back steadily, as you can see, over the past 10 years. to where we are right now at $1.4 billion in assets. I'm not quite sure at the end of 2018 whether that number is going to go up any higher. We watch the stock market every day, and it's always a thrill watching the daily returns. But we don't live or fall or die on any particular year's investment returns. We are long-term investors. And as you can see, over the past 20 years, we've had some good years in our investment returns, and we've had some not so good years in our investment returns. By and large, however, we have exceeded our assumed rate of investment income, rate of return, that is, based on what we've set as our discount rate. And as you can see, the discount rate has been steadily decreasing since 2002. And as of 1/1/18, and the new valuation that was just completed, the board reduced the assumed rate of investment return again down to 7.5%. So that is the trend. Right now, retirement boards are in a range anywhere from, I would say, 7% up to, still there are a few at 8%. But the overwhelming majority of retirement systems fall within the 7.5 to 7 3/4 discount rate for their investment returns. As you can see, that 2008 number, boy, that really stands out like a sore thumb. 24.5% of our assets were lost. So we've had some pretty good investment success, and our investments, this is what makes up that $1.4 million. Almost all of it, 99% of it right now, is invested in the PRIT Core Fund. That's the Pension Reserve Investment Management Fund. It's a state agency that invests the state and state teachers' money and any other retirement system that wants to join in. I think as of the most recent numbers, they had almost $63 billion in assets. So our $1 billion is not much, but it gives us the power of scale, and it opens up opportunities in the investments that we would not have if we were to conduct our own management program. And in 2007, we made the decision to invest all of our assets into PRIT, because we had our own investment program prior to that. The rest of those little slivers in that pie chart are existing legacy real estate and private equity investments that were illiquid and could not be transitioned into the PRIT fund, and we keep about $5 million in cash right now as well. PRIM takes our money and divides it all up into different asset allocations. And this is an overview of where and what different baskets the PRIT puts its money: global equity, core fixed income, value-added fixed income, private equity, real estate, timberland. Portfolio completion strategies is that PCS. It's a fancy name for hedge funds. People didn't like the name hedge funds, so they made a new name for it. But it's been pretty good as far as returns on the investments. As you can see at the bottom, the asset allocation assumptions are designed to generate a certain percentage. Now, it's very difficult to sit here and say over 30 years, this is what this plan is going to generate for income. But it's a necessary exercise that all boards have to go through to project exactly what the market calls for, where your money should be invested, how you minimize risk, and where is the money going to come from to pay pensions down the road. So there are a lot of numbers that go in there. This is New England Pension Consultants numbers that they generate for the PRIM board, and the current target 2018 6.6% over the next 5 or 7 years. That's what PRIM expects to earn on their investments. Over 30 years, it's going to go to 7.7. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that the economy will still go well. Contribution rates and regular compensation. So employees put money into the retirement system just like the employers do. And depending on when they started their membership in the retirement system points to what contribution rates apply to them. I'm not sure we have many left of 1/175, even though Kevin's hair is almost as gray as I am. I'm not sure that he started before 1/175. I did, believe it or not. I was a junior at Boston College, and I was working at the courthouse in East Cambridge, and I was a member of the Middlesex County Retirement System by virtue of that employment, and complaining bitterly about the money they were taking out of my meager $95 a week check. But as you can see, If you came in later, the contribution rates over the years have gradually gone up to the point where after 1/1/96, it's 9%. And if you make over $30,000, you pay an additional 2% of your compensation into the retirement system. So in Massachusetts, we have some of the highest contribution rates for public workers in the country. And that's partially because we don't have Social Security as well. So they're not putting in the 6.2, they're putting in some cases, almost double towards their retirement allowance. So regular comp, I'm going to go over this quickly. The legislature had refined and reformed the definition of regular comp back in 2009 and had narrowed it. So not every dollar that an employee receives in compensation from an employer is considered to be pensionable. It gets calculated in their retirement allowance. There are statutes and regulations that have to be complied with in order for the money to be, the salary to be considered in their retirement calculations, and those are generally the salary schedule, educational incentives like the Quinn bill if you have that for your police or fire, longevity payments is regular comp, holiday shift differentials, things of that nature are regular comp. What is not regular comp, overtime and bonuses, any expense reimbursements, housing, clothing expenses, clothing allowances, things of that nature. I'll let you folks go through the laundry list at your convenience. So let's get to the town of Ayer and their contributions and benefits, because we know we send you a bill every year, and it's a big bill, and you folks have every right to know how that money, how that figure was determined, and where does it go, and how do we plan for the future for that in our budgets. So providing that information to all of our member units is vitally important to the retirement system so that everyone has an understanding of what the pensions are. So before 1988, this is a little history lesson, you were on a pay-as-you-go basis. In other words, you would just start putting in money when an employee started to retire, and there was really no money being set aside to pay future pensions. So the unfunded liability issue was becoming quite serious in Massachusetts, and the legislature then passed a law that said we're going to give you everybody 40 years to have your systems fully funded. That means you'll have enough money in your system to pay all the pensions. After 2008, by the way, we were halfway there, and the legislature now extended that from 2028 to 2040 for that deadline, drop-dead deadline to be fully funded. As I said earlier, the employee contributions were increased, as we saw in the prior chart, and now the employers are had to make scheduled payments towards that unfunded liability based on the valuation of the retirement system. So every 2 years we perform a valuation. We have Siegel Consultants is our actuary. It's a national actuary. They come in and they take a look at our liabilities for all our current and future retirement allowances, and they compare that with the assets we have. That is the contributions that come in from the employer and employers and the investment earnings, and they develop what they call a normal cost. That's a liability to be that's going to be counted in the current year. The accrued liability is liability that results from the employee's past service, and the unfunded liability is the amount by which the accrued liability exceeds the system's assets. So that's really just a basic understanding of what a system evaluation is, and the law requires that it be done every 2 years by every retirement system. So when you do that valuation, then you have to produce a funding schedule. You have to figure out when the system is going to be fully funded. So in Middlesex, our fully funded date is 2035. We have chosen not to go to 2040 because we never know when another 2008 is going to occur. And we're going to need some wiggle room if that does indeed happen. Every year, the funding schedule requires that an employer make a payment to reflect the normal costs for that year plus the unfunded liability. And every 2 years, we revise that. And in Middlesex County, we have a specific actuarial valuation that takes into account every member unit's individual liabilities. The statutory formula calls for a aggregate payroll method of determining the liabilities for the entire system. That works against some member units and works in favor of other member units, but it's inequitable. So in Middlesex County, we made this decision 10 years ago that a town wants to pay their employees X amount of dollars, they want to hire their employees, more employees, well, then they're going to be responsible for it. We're not going to pass that liability on to another member unit within the Middlesex County retirement system. So we have a mini valuation for each and every one of our 71 member units. So, as I said earlier, Siegel is our consultant, and we get input from the advisory council on the assessments. We have a subcommittee on the assessments and investments. Kevin attends all of those meetings, and we have 2 meetings a year with the advisory council, and we collaborate with them in setting this funding schedule and setting the actuarial assumptions as well. So right now, we're going to be paid off in 17 years. Keep our fingers crossed when that whole unfunded liability will fall off the funding schedule, and you'll just be paying for the normal cost for your employees. And our funding schedule, of course, has to be approved by the state agency. PERAC is called the Public Employee Retirement Administration Commission. It's a mouthful, but they oversee all of the operations of all the local retirement boards. Now, for the 2018 valuation, we made some changes to our assumptions. And the first thing we did was updated the mortality tables to reflect that that our retirees are living longer. Now, the fact that folks are living longer, I'm in favor of that. So I'm not complaining about longevity of retirees. I mean, we have to pay them longer, but I think it's a good thing. Our investment, this is an important one, is the investment return assumption. The reduction of that by a mere quarter of a basis point, by quarter of a percentage, has a dramatic impact on the funding schedule and increases the unfunded liability. If we were to keep that number at 7.75 or even put it back at 8, you would see, oh, great, the system's in great shape because now their funding level is much higher. But it's really an exercise in mathematical exercise, but it has to reflect reality. And we believe that 7.5% is the place to be today for an assumed investment return, and we set that number with input from the advisory council as well. We've also reduced our salary increase assumptions based on the system as a whole. We had our Group 1 employees, who are the general employees, administrative laborers, DPW, government workers. Their salary assumptions were reduced from 4.25% to 4%. Group 4 assumptions, that's police officers and firefighters, those were reduced from 4.75% to 4.5%. So that was another change to the assumption. So the overall, of all the assumption changes, there was a $97.2 million increase in the unfunded liability system-wide, and it increased the normal cost by about $2.3 million. By the way, the whole actuarial study is available on our website if anybody wants to go and look at how these numbers were developed and where and each town has their own individual sheet in that as well. So for the town of Ayer, your fiscal appropriation required is $121 million. That's the whole system, Middlesex County, that's what we have to do. But your appropriation, $1.4 million, and as you can see, it's gone up with the 2018 valuation, which sets the fiscal year 2020 and 2021 numbers. It's 1.7 and 1.8. That's what you'll be paying to us in those 2 fiscal years. So that's the bad news. The good news is you know what the number is, and you can start to plan for it now. And also, if you, under the statute, the payments are due one half on July 1 and one half in January 1. But if you pay it all up front, you get a discount of about 2% on the total bill. It helps, believe it or not. It does help the cities and towns, and almost everyone now, I would say, at least takes advantage of that, except some of the housing authorities who don't get funding from the state in time to take advantage of that. The normal cost that we mentioned earlier for fiscal year 19 is $295,000. That's the liability that accrues for the current year. The payment on the unfunded liability is $1.149 million. You can see the total unfunded liability is $15 million. There's also an ERI that Ayer accepted back in 2002 and 2003 that you're still paying off, and that is tracked separately. That will be paid off shortly, I believe, at least in 2020, I think, Kevin, is the date that'll fall off. And we'll receive expected contributions from our employees of $513,000 from the town of Ayer's public workers. So this tracks the appropriations going back to 2012, which is all I could fit on that chart and make it legible. And you can see the numbers on the right-hand side going up 1.2, 1.3, then it goes back down a little bit. But they are creeping up as inflation creeps up and as the costs creep up, the salaries creep up, those numbers will creep up as well. The benefits. So on the left-hand side, type of benefits, those are all different types of benefits that Chapter 32, which is the retirement plan, provides. And these are system-wide numbers. Just briefly, superannuation, that's the normal retirement based on your age, years of service, and high 3 or 5 year salary. The disability pensions are calculated a little bit differently. Accidental disability is the highest, as you can see in the median allowance. That pays you 72% of your salary when you become disabled due to a work-related injury. We have various other benefits that are that we pay. We have 3 surviving spouses of employees who were killed in the line of duty, and their benefit is the benefit their spouse would have received had they kept working and not died as a result of injuries, either at the scene of a fire or an assault on the body in the case of a police officer. So our median allowance, after taking in all those benefits system-wide, is $17,921. Our annual payment is $141 million in benefits that are going out of the retirement system. As I said, it's a big system. It's a big operation. Now, Ayer's slice of the pie, if you will, these numbers on this slide give you what the retirees in Ayer receive, how many receiving superannuation, how many receiving ordinary and accidental. You have a higher proportion of accidental disability retirees in Ayer, I would say, than in other towns proportionately. Luckily, there are no killed in the line of duty benefits being paid here to any surviving spouses. So the median allowance for of all benefit recipients from the town of Ayer is $18,635 per year, and the annual payment is $1.7 million. I think those numbers are instructive. Folks, there are some that think that everybody gets rich on a public pension, and in fact, there are some employees who do receive, as you can see, the pensions of greater than 6 figures, but those are highly compensated employees while they were working, and that's why under the formula, their retirement allowance, if it's at 80% of their high 3-year salary, would be 6 figures. But 22 of your 47 retirees for superannuation, the regular normal retirement, as you can see, make less than $20,000 a year from the Middlesex County Retirement System in their pension. So a lot of information I've given. I've talked very quickly. You folks haven't asked any questions yet, so thank you very much for doing that. As I said, we have a website that you can go to get a copy of the valuation and other reports. Our GASB 6768 report. Our financial statements are on there as well. And I'm happy to answer any questions that the Board of Selectmen may have.
I don't have any questions, but I will say I think the presentation is very, very well laid out and informational. I appreciate the level of detail without getting too deep into the weeds.
I had to cut about 40 pages out, I will tell you.
And it is greatly appreciated. It is greatly appreciated.
So thank you very much. It's always a pleasure coming to the town of Ayer and working with Kevin and Mr. Pompriand and Barbara Tierney, now the treasurer for how many months now, Barbara? You've been a year? A year? 2. Well, all right. Yeah. In Ayer, right, exactly. So anything the town needs for information, just pick up the phone and call us or ask us to come out. We're always happy to do it.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, Robert.
Madam Chair, just in the interest of time, I just wanted to point out, and it was in Mr. Johnston's memo to me, as Mr. Gibson mentioned, for the increase that will be coming up for budgetary purposes, $236,643, which we will be budgeting for that increase in the development of that budget. And whenever there's a six-figure budget number in the budget, I think it warrants just a brief discussion. And I think, as the board is aware, and Mr. Gibson touched upon, what's driving that increase is really the investment rate of return that he mentioned being reduced from 7.75 to the 7.5, the salary increase assumptions, the mortality tables, and as the board is aware, since the last valuation, we do have a 111F disability, which also it has to go through that whole cycle. But just, I know the board is aware, but just publicly, I mean, that increase of $236,643, which we'll be building into the budget, that is the reason driving behind that increase.
Right, thank you.
And thank you, Tom, and Kevin, and Barbara, and Lisa.
Right.
Thank you.
Everyone. Thank
Have
you.
a good evening. Thanks.
Have a good evening.
Score update, 3-2, bottom of the sixth, Red Sox.
Woo! Mr. Hood.
All right. Ready? Excellent. Madam Chair, thank you for your flexibility this evening. It is my pleasure to present two recent Eagle Scouts from Troop 3 in Ayer, William and Edward Ernst. These gentlemen began their scouting journey in Cub Scouts with Pack 32. Over the years, they have learned about citizenship, nature, various outdoor activities, and leadership. Between both of them, they have held leadership positions in the troop, including senior patrol leader, quartermaster, and many more. Both Will and Ed are members of Order of the Arrow, Grand Monadnock Lodge number 309, which is the National Honor Society of Boy Scouts. Will and Ed have always been very active members of the troop in OA Lodge, plus great mentors to the younger scouts in the troop. For his Eagle Scout project, Will constructed helmet and bat racks for home and visitor dugouts at Peroni Park, located in the Babe Ruth and the softball fields. Edward, for his Eagle Scout project, cleaned up the wooded trail behind Ayer Shirley Regional High School for the cross-country team. Mile marker signs were added at 1 and 2 mile spots using signage donated by the Ayer DPW. Please congratulate Will and Ed for their accomplishment of becoming Eagle Scouts. We have certificates of recognition. This is for Edward Ernst. On behalf of the entire town of Ayer, congratulations on this prestigious accomplishment. Thank you for your efforts at Ayer Shirley Regional High School. The freshly cleaned and maintained cross-country trail is an invaluable addition to our town. And for William Ernst, on behalf of the entire town of Ayer, congratulations on this prestigious accomplishment. Thank you for your efforts at Peroni Park. The newly constructed helmet and bat racks are invaluable additions to our town. Thank you.
Thank you. Very nice. One more. Congrats.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I can't imagine where you learned all this stuff.
Thank you.
Could be your father. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Pretty big, not just one kid, but two kids.
And I will say, I have twins, and I did offer to recognize them on separate nights, because I know my twins sometimes like to do things separately. And they were adamant that they wanted to do it together. So, thank you.
everything together.
They do. And just real quick, so the Girl Scout equivalent for Eagle Scout is the Gold Award. And if there are any Gold Award recipients out there, we'd love to have them in for recognition.
Absolutely. So, congratulations again. Thank you for being here.
Great.
All right, Mark, come on down.
Thank you. I have a few things for you tonight.
Do you want to
First-
drive this?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Just right and left?
You're right, yeah, that would make it.
And what
go
about
forward.
if I want to point something
It
out?
doesn't work?
Can I use the mouse?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, no, that's not working either.
Like a little pointer.
My laser pointer doesn't work on there.
The green one doesn't either, yeah. If you hit the top button.
So first on the agenda is, we've been talking about our parking management issues in town and starting to implement those. So the first item on the agenda, did you
Yep,
get this map? Okay,
yep,
so that's my
the ones that you
copy.
sent me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all right,
Yeah.
good. So, so the first item we talked about implementing was, and we wanted to do this before the end of the year, was having some zones where it would be resident parking only. And so, so we've talked about where we wanted to do that, and basically from Cambridge, between Main Street and Cambridge Street. So the purple colors are the ones where we would put up signs that are resident parking only, so that we don't have any out-of-town commuters parking in those. One thing we have discussed in the past, and I think if this doesn't work, we could implement that, is to have the purple be local resident only, so you'd have to be in a butter on the street, and then we would have another zone that would be resident parking. But I think at this point, I'd like to try this out and see how it works, and if not, then we'll have to do the rest. But if you drive down, drive up West Street or down Pleasant Street, you'll see at 7 in the morning, it's all commuter cars parked there, and the people that live there have a hard time finding parking places and getting out of their driveways. There's some maps, I don't know if you guys have a couple. So, and I passed this on to Chief Murray, but he's on vacation or out of the office for the next couple of days, so I haven't heard back from him. One thing I did want to point out was, I didn't draw this quite right. I think, based on what Chief Murray had told me, the 2-hour parking on West Street goes to about this point. And I think I want to extend it in front of this building. We don't want to block the, this is all an open curb cut for parking, but go as far as we can with 2-hour parking. And then some of the businesses and the dentist's office have a little more opportunity for people to come in for 2 hours. And then anything above that would be resident parking only. One of the other things we're looking at here, and it's just a matter of sitting down with the parking lot owners, is having some shared parking agreements with different owners. So for instance, this parking lot here during the day is rarely full. This is in back of Billiards. Calvin Moore owns that. And so I talked to him informally about, if we could have some sort of an agreement where we could have maybe 8 or 10 spaces marked out that would be either 2-hour parking or parking from 7 to 5. Most of his parking gets used up after 5 o'clock at night, so that's when it really gets a crunch. So, so that's an option, and we've also talked with the bank and with Mr. Barry here, and I think Mr. Moore rents this parking lot at the church also. So we have some opportunities to have some additional spaces that we would have a shared parking agreement where the town would maintain the parking spaces, we'd put up signage, and we'd enforce the hours that are marked, and maybe have some other kind of deals that we'd have to negotiate for.
Sounds good. So you're gonna wait to see what Chief Murray says when he comes back?
Yes, I just didn't know if the, and this is the same thing, it's just a different
Oh, right,
picture.
yeah.
I didn't know if the board had any comments or suggestions.
I think it looks good to me.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
All right. So the next on the agenda is the solid waste fees. We went to a calendar year instead of a fiscal year. Primarily, it was just too hectic trying to sell all of our stickers and before July 1 with closing out the fiscal year. And we sell the majority of them before the end of the fiscal year, so we still collect that revenue. So that's why we're doing them for fiscal year 19 at this time. And what I'm proposing would be that the new bag fees, if they're accepted by the board, would go into effect on November 1st, and the new permit fees would be on January 1st when the existing permits are expired.
When was the last time we changed the bag fees? That was just like a year ago, wasn't it?
The bag fees, yeah, I have a slide that shows how the fees, both the permit and the bag fees, have gone up, Robert. I'll pass those on. So, let's see. There's our beautiful transfer station for everybody who's goes there every Saturday. Just an overview. So the solid waste transfer station operation is an enterprise fund. Basically, what that means is that we have a separate account for that, and we use the revenues from the rates and the bag sales to cover the costs. In this case, it's not a fully funded enterprise fund. So for instance, all of the water revenue collected covers all of the costs. All the wastewater revenue covers all the costs. In this case, we subsidize the budget by about 40%. So the revenue is generated from the permit sales, pay-as-you-throw bag sales. We make a little bit of revenue on bulk stickers, recycling, and we'll get to that. We do collect money from some of the vendors. For instance, the scrap metal pile, we get money from that. But the majority of the revenue comes from the permits and the pay-as-you-throw bags. What do we do at the transfer station? We collect the trash. We have the zero sort recycling. We just last year started a food waste collection. The value of that is that if you ever notice and you take your food waste out of your trash bag, it's a lot lighter because food has a fair amount of moisture in it, so it's pretty heavy. We collect the yard waste, which we process and haul to our brush dump, and then compost and turn into loam that residents can come to the DPW and get. We also have a swap shed, which I hear is pretty popular. And we
Don't touch it.
We do book, textile, and metal recycling. Some statistics: there's about 3,200 residents who are eligible. We only sell about 700 regular permits and 580 senior permits. We last year generated 775 tons of municipal solid waste and 340 tons of the zero sort recycling. The recycling and I'll get to that in a minute, but we collect the cardboard separately, and there is a pretty good market for the cardboard. The recycling is a different story. So our current fees, the annual permit's $80. Senior citizen rate is $50. The second permit is $20. 1 day permit is $10. The small trash bag is $2. The medium size is $3, and then the big bag is $4. A bulk tag is $5 each, and then we have a schedule. So if you have a couch, I think it's 2 bulk tags. A TV's 3 tags, and so people come in and buy those. I think, don't you sell those on the black market?
I do, yes.
I had someone come in and buy a whole bunch, and then he came back to get a refund, and I says, "Oh, just go up on a Saturday morning and sell them." Anyway, just an idea of our budget. You can see the wages and the indirect expenses are associated with wages and some of the other fringe benefits and things. So you can see that's a big chunk of the operation. Disposal is about a quarter, and then we have some capital debt on the operation. So here's our budget. So the total FY19 budget's $509,000. We have a debt exclusion, general fund subsidy. We get about $6,000 in grants for different recycling programs. So we need to generate about $270,000 out of our permit and fee sales. A little bit on our budget issues. We just went out for a new solid waste disposal contract. It went from $68.11 per ton up to $92.50 per ton. That's primarily because the company that was doing it, Casella, closed their landfill, so there were a lot less disposal options. So we have Devon's Recycling is now going to be disposing of it, and they will be taking it to Covanta, which is a trash to energy facility. That increase is going to probably amount to about $20,000 a year. Recycling costs are based on commodity pricing, and based on our last couple bills for disposal of our zero sort recycling, it was over $100 a ton. So we used to make money on it. Now we end up paying for it. So we're keeping an eye on that and trying to look for options on how we can get that more under control. The other budget issue is the total number of transfer stations decreases slightly every year, and the ratio of regular permits to senior permits is changing. So we're selling more senior permits at a lower price than we are regular permits. So that has an impact on revenue also. We also are, we went out about a year and a half ago to lease our landfill for a solar installation, and we'll be collecting lease money on that. It's going to be between $20,000 and $25,000 a year, depending on how much electricity they generate. It's based on the kilowatts, and that should be starting construction fairly soon. But I don't know if we'll be getting any revenue in this fiscal year. So here's just a summary of the permit types. You can see the number of seniors is going up and the number of regulars is going down, and second permits stay about the same. I talked about the recycling commodity market. You probably have seen this on the news. You can see in March in 2017 it was about $100 a ton, and now it's down to about $5 a ton. I think it's crept up a little bit, but where it's so now it basically costs us money to get rid of it. So the way I looked at the cost increases, I have a rate model and I plug in different options with different price increases, starting with small increases in permits and small increases in bags, and look at different amounts and see when I can generate enough revenue to get about $270,000. So I looked at 10 different rate scenarios and came up with a recommended rate of a $10 increase on the permits. So the annual permit would go from $80 to $90. The senior would go from 50 to 60, and the second permit from 20 to 30. One-day permit would stay the same, and then the trash bags would each go up $1 per bag. So you can see the permit fee history. We hadn't raised the permits since FY13, and the bags we've been increasing in FY15, FY16, 16 and FY 18. So then we would increase again. The idea behind increasing the bag fees is that, for instance, you probably use a small bag without having, where you don't have a lot of kids at home and things like that, whereas Mr. Hood probably has a couple big bags. So
I'm happy to say we average just one bag.
it's like when in my town we have curbside, and when I walk up the street and some people have their 4 trash barrels out, I'm going, how do they fill that much trash in a week? And so that's why the pay as you throw is more equitable to increase the bag rates, but we do need to have that baseline revenue from the permits to cover some of the operating costs. And so what does that do? The current cost for a regular person with a permit who uses maybe 70 bags a year, it would be, right now they pay about $290 a year. A senior person right now pays about $100 a year. Under the proposed rates, it would be $370 a year for a regular permit user, and $135 for a senior. Just for comparison, if you called up Waste Management and asked them to come pick up your trash every week, it's about $600 a year. And that's it.
Okay. So Mark, I got a couple questions.
Okay?
First of all, I'm not for this. And I'll tell you why. It's the timing of it. Because we've got to still address the town and their desire to have different transfer station hours. But also because, so I looked up a couple of towns. So I'm going to use, Groton, for example. Okay, and we can, sit here till the cows go home to compare the two towns. But total hours available to the public, based on what I got on their website, is 35 and a half hours a week. Their transfer station sticker primary is $60. For seniors, $15. They use a 15-gallon trash bag, which so do we, and it is $11 for a sleeve of 10 bags. Ours is, for 15-gallon package of 5, $10 for a package of 5.
Mm-hmm.
But they get 10 for 11. Now they use the 32-gallon trash bags. We use a 33-gallon. Our package of 5 is $15. Their package of 10 is $19. So, and they use a 45-gallon trash bag. We happen to use the 50. Package of 5, $20 for us, and a package of 10 for $27 for them. So whereas we're paying $2, $3, and $4 each, theirs is like $1.10, $1.90 to $2.70 each. So that's Groton. In Littleton, the hours available to the public are evidently 30 hours. Now, their first sticker, glad you're all sitting down, is $110. So it also gives you some perspective to the whole conversation. Their 33-gallon trash bag is $2.75 each. The 15-gallon, $1.75, and they have an 8.5-gallon for $1. I don't think I could do it with an 8.5-gallon. Now, Harvard is a little odd. They're only evidently open to the public for 10 hours. We would never be able to get away with that around here. But their fees, where is it? There's this. Their fee is $250 a year, depending on if you purchase, so this happens to be the 2019 transfer station permits fee scheduled for Harvard. If purchased prior to July 1st, it was going to be $250. If purchased from July 1st to July 31st, it was going to be $275. And if purchased August 1st to June 30th, 2019, $305. So, but that's for some perspective. So what I'm saying is that I personally think that right now because we have the conversation as to trying to work out the transfer station hours, is the town of Ayer getting the bang for the buck? And realizing that there is a slight difference between the bag sizes between Groton and Ayer, are we using, what
I don't know whether,
service
yeah,
are they using?
and I don't know whether that may be that their terminology is different. It may be the same size bags.
I'm only
Because when we buy them, we buy them based on the dimensions, not the
right,
gallons.
and
So
they're saying it's a 32-gallon medium-sized trash bag, 45-gallon largest size trash bag, and a 15-gallon kitchen trash bag, which would
I would guess
basically
that
be-
they're using the same bags we're using.
So, but what I'm saying is that if that's a big price discrepancy, though. So, what I would like, because I do think that this will end up having to happen, that we will have to do some type of fee increase. But what I would like to see is a more broader conversation as to amending the transfer station hours to do our best to make the public as happy as possible. As I said, happy as possible. Because that's been made very clear that the town of Ayer would like that fixed. I'd also like to see, like, how is Groton, getting away with, are their size bags really different?
Well, one of the things
Are they using a different company?
It's hard to compare without knowing
Well, that's what I'm
exactly what's in there
saying. That's
because
what I'm saying. We would
they
need
may
to look at
they
that.
may have more of a subsidy from the general fund. Also, the number of users. I'm sure Groton has more users
Mm-hmm.
than we do. If we had double the number of users, that's something that Selectman Hood and I were talking about, is looking at if we had more users, how would that change the costs?
And that brings up
Uh,
what you also have on the agenda, which would really kind of ties in with this conversation here, is the request for Devon's residents to use the Ayer transfer station. So if we go into that conversation, and if the board thinks that that's a good idea, that also would probably bring in new revenue. But I think the whole picture of, because it does seem like we're talking about the bag fees constantly, which I agree, it's pay as you go. The idea being, excuse me, minimize what you're putting in the bag so that you can recycle more, but also looking at our hours, as to how many hours we're offering to the public, because we know that if we go to raise the fees, people are going to be going, well, wait a minute, you're raising the fees, but yet I'm not feeling like I'm getting more of a service as far as the hours go. So I'm just saying that I think right now that the timing of this conversation is probably, in my opinion, better suited maybe in a couple of months.
When is the transfer station hour discussion going to progress? I know we have a union contract that's up at the end of this fiscal year, and that's something that's in the contract. So I don't know if we're waiting until then to resolve that.
I've been delayed getting together with Cindy Knox to get the survey up on the town website or on SurveyMonkey. I will do that with her next week. Absolutely. I do agree with Janice. I think that there is more information that does need to be looked at. I know we ran into each other yesterday at the DPW, and we did talk about what is the impact if we were to increase the number of users. I know Ms. Copeland is working on like a welcome newsletter for newer families in town, because there does seem to be a lack of knowledge with new people moving into town, that A, we have a transfer station, B, how it works, and C, how pretty cool it is, to be honest, because you can really get rid of a lot of stuff there. And it is fairly convenient. And what is the impact on that? And the other thing I'll just add going through this is, I think raising just the proposal to raise the second permit by $10, I think would really discourage a lot of people from getting a second permit. So I think you would see some revenue loss in there. I get a second permit every year because we have 2 cars, 3 kids, so inevitably one car's here, one car's there. And we ran into too many situations years ago where my wife would have the van with the sticker, and I couldn't go to the transfer station.
the revenue generated, and like I said, I have a model and I plug in a whole bunch of different scenarios. The revenue generated from the second permit isn't significant either
Yeah.
way.
But if you see a downtick in that, it could also impact some of the operations. As I said, I will work with Cindy next week to get the survey up on the town website. So at least we can start down that path.
Right. So, and I agree with what you're saying as far as, I'm looking at what the town of Groton has on their website. And yes, there has to be more questions asked as to why they're able to do it the way they're doing it versus how we're able to do it in this town. I absolutely agree. But I think that the timing of it right now is just not good. Because I think we've got too much up in the air. I am interested as to what you have to say as far as, the request for Devon's residents to use the air transfer station, because that actually leads into even the further conversation later on in the evening. So I think that, and if that happens, if it's agreed to, based on what you're going to present and whatnot, that also could help increase revenue while we're figuring out everything else. So it's my recommendation that this be brought up again in a few months.
So you're looking to do this on a calendar basis?
Well, that's what we do right now. So
So
people are going to be coming in on beginning of December to buy their stickers.
So we would have to at least look at the permits themselves by the beginning of December and have a decision by then.
So what would you like me to do? Do more research from how the other towns are doing it and try to get an apples and apples comparison, or?
Oh,
I
it
mean,
might
I don't
not
want to
be
come
an
back.
apple and
I don't want to
apples.
come back in a month and not have any new information.
Well, I can tell you that right now, what I'm thinking is that before I think about raising the permit prices again or the bag prices again, is that I also want to solve the other bigger issue which impacts this town as far as the hours of the transfer station, so that when this conversation happens as far as, fees increase and whatnot, that we've attacked everything, because I do not believe, in my opinion, that the town is going to be very happy if we raise the permit fees and yet they still only have 24 hours access to the transfer station and hours that they can't stand. Yes, Robert.
Madam Chair, I think as far as a method to proceed, as the board is aware, the hours are set by the contract.
Correct.
We have just started the contract negotiations. It's no mystery. I know the union president is here tonight. It's no mystery that that's the front and center of the negotiations. As the board is also aware, when successful, that change most likely of those hours won't be implemented till July 1st of 2019. Under the new contract. And I think that the boards, through Selectman Hood, I think the survey I know we're going to do. I also, again, appreciate all of the work that Mark did. At the end of the day, it looks like, and I know the board's aware of this, we have about a $270,000 shortfall. So we either take that from the addition to the general fund, or how do we make that up? I know that the board's aware of that, but I think that if the permits are going to start on January 1st, the calendar, we need to, by the beginning of December, have a plan. Otherwise, we're going to have to take that funding out of the general fund.
I think to get an apples to apples, because it is difficult when you compare to other towns. So if we try to break it down to, one of the things that struck out to me in the presentation was how we're actually at less than 50% of the residential units are actually using the transfer station. Would be to look at the surrounding towns and see what percentage usage they're at, if they have that information available. How much their permit fees are, and then what percentage does their permit fees make up of their total budget? What percentage of their budget comes from a subsidy compared to ours? And then just if possible, just what vendors they're using and how they differ from ours. So if they're using a different vendor, maybe we look at, if we could possibly switch over to that vendor. Leverage
we went out for bid just
And that
recently and
didn't-
got
that
new
was the
prices,
lowest,
so.
So we'll take vendors off the
Yeah.
list then. Those are, I think, the best pieces of information to at least get a higher level comparison without getting too deep into the quagmire of the weeds.
All right.
All right, so now,
The Devons is not really my agenda item. I guess some people have asked about, some Devons residents have asked if they can use the air transfer station. We don't get, I think I've only had one person ask me, I'm not sure.
We've had 2 or 3 in the past. I know one gentleman's here tonight in the audience, but we've had 2 or 3 over the summer anyway, via email and call, so.
I mean, I don't have any problem with having more users. The only issue that I would say from an equitable point of view is, since the taxpayers in Air are subsidizing about 40 to 45% of the cost, that the cost of the permit should make up that difference.
I agree.
well, and I agree, because when I saw that on the agenda, I mean, that's definitely part of the conversation, because, if we agree to it, which might not actually be a bad idea, they're kind of the out-of-state tuition, people. And that could generate some revenue too. So,
Yeah, I don't know what they have in Devon's right now, if it's private collection, and if you're paying $600 a year for waste management, is it worth it to pay $600 a year to go to the air transfer station? So.
well, I mean, that should be, maybe we can look into it and then, kind of come up with some type of a reasonable idea as to what we would charge if we allowed some Devon residents. I mean, there might be 1 or 2 that decide to do it, and and the rest might not. But yeah, they would definitely be paying a different price. But would it be an astronomical price, or would it be $10 more than what the residents in Air are pricing? You know what I'm saying?
I think it would be 45% more.
Okay.
And actually, if you look at it just from the permit point of view, so the bag revenue is a certain percent, and we're not going to charge Devon's people more for a bag.
No, because
So we have to make up that difference on the permit. So so it may be, the permits may end up being double what they are for an Air resident.
Madam Chair, so I think on this, why we put this on the agenda, sort of 2 takeaways. One, obviously, if we're to do this, the Board of Selectmen would create or set that permit and get your input. And secondly, we can put together a proposal for the board to consider. I agree with Superintendent Wetzel that it should, for equity, reflect the percentage difference from Air residents. And to Ms. Antonellis' point, we have gotten about a handful of inquiries just recently, and if the capacity is there, at least we could offer that. So,
yeah, I mean,
That's
we
how
could
the-
offer it. I mean, it doesn't
Yeah.
cost anything to offer it, and then if they decide to take us up on it, it's a win-win for everybody.
okay.
Okay.
All right. So the next item is, we've been getting recently some water quality complaints. And I know social media, which I purposely don't read unless it's pointed out to me. There's been a lot of chatter about the poor water quality in Air. And so I wanted to give you an update. This summer was a pretty challenging summer from a water supply point of view. And so the first thing I want to mention is the water's safe to drink. we test for hundreds of contaminants every year. On a daily basis, we test at our 2 treatment plants. We test for iron, manganese, pH, and chlorine. On a monthly basis, we test for bacteria at different locations throughout the town. And if we had any kind of a violation of any of these regulated contaminants, then we would do a public notification. So, with the water safe to drink, it just may not smell or look or taste very good to drink. And we're working on trying to resolve that. Just a little bit about our water supply. So we have 5 groundwater wells in 2 different locations. One's over at Grove Pond and one's up off of Westford Road by Spectacle Pond. We typically will pump about 1.4 million gallons a day. In the summer, it can go as high as 2.8 million gallons a day when all the irrigation systems are running and we have a lot more water usage. The well water is high in dissolved iron, manganese, and arsenic. The arsenic is a regulated primary contaminant. We remove that to below the standards. The dissolved iron and manganese are what we call secondary standards, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. Water is also moderately hard. This is pretty typical of New England groundwater. I would say the iron and manganese in air is probably a little higher than what you see in other towns, but if you go to Littleton or go to Groton or go to Westford, they have same types of problems with iron and manganese. So the 2 treatment plants, we use what's called a pressure filtration plant. So those are designed to remove iron, manganese, and arsenic. What we do is we add chemicals to oxidize those minerals, and then we filter it out. And each plant has 6 large filter vessels. And then we also add chlorine for disinfection and potassium hydroxide for corrosion control to meet the lead and copper rule, and that adjusts the pH up. So the dirty water that people notice is related to secondary standards. They're non-health related. The recommended iron level is 0.3. The recommended manganese level is 0.05. Generally, if you're seeing iron in your water, it's more of a reddish brown, and if you're seeing manganese, it's more of a blackish brown. We tend to have both, so you probably got a brown water if it's coming out in your system. As you can see, our Grove Pond well water range, well 8, which is the one we took out of service because of the contamination. I'll mention that. Has very little iron, but well 6 has 7.3 parts. So you can see the standard's 0.3. We've got 7.3. So at our treatment plant, we're removing 7 parts of iron. So it's a big task. The manganese goes from 0.5 to 4.9, and the standard's 0.05. So it's very tricky to make sure that we're meeting those standards, but we have in the past done a pretty good job. Here's a typical picture of, this was a couple summers ago, the water going into the plant and the water coming out of the plant. So what causes dirty water? And this is in general, because you'll have dirty water in all towns. I get it in my water system, and I'm sure Robert has it in Fitchburg and Winchendon.
I have a well.
Oh, there you go. So what changes it? So every pipe, and I would have brought in a piece of pipe. I do have a picture of one, but a lot of our water system is unlined cast iron pipe, and that builds up like it's called tuberculation, but it looks like a rust on the inside. It's big scales of rust. And what happens is that can tend to loosen up if you have changes in your chemical dosages. The inside of the pipe gets used to a certain type of water, and then when you put something different in it, it starts to dissolve that. You may have high flows from irrigation of lawns, or from pipe breaks, or from people opening hydrants. We can usually, a lot of times if we get a call that says we have a dirty water complaint, we know that someone in that neighborhood has opened a hydrant. So there might be a landscaper or a contractor that's opened a hydrant without telling us. Construction activities, we might open and close valves, and that changes flow directions. And then a lot of times it's not really the water in our piping or that we're supplying to the house. It's the household plumbing that you have. You may have some old galvanized pipe that is stirring up the water. A lot of times it's the water heater. So if your dirty water's from your hot water only, it's related to your hot water heater. Here's some other dirty water causes. Poor water treatment, that was part of our problem this summer. Changes in raw water quality, that was another one of our problems. Changes in water chemistry and changes in water temperature. So this is primarily what our challenges were this summer. So, but it's also related to the water distribution piping. Our pipes range in size from 4 to 16 inches. We have 48 miles. The original pipes, which was, we have about 17 miles of unlined cast iron pipe, and that dates back to 1898. We also have about 18 miles of asbestos cement pipe, which has a pretty good inside liner on it. It doesn't rust or tuberculate. Don't be afraid of the asbestos. The asbestos does not come off in the pipe. But the reason I put that up is because the AC pipe doesn't have as long of a lifespan as a cast iron or ductile iron pipe. And so it may fail, and we've had a couple failures recently. If you heard, we had a water main break a couple weeks ago up on East Main Street. That was an AC pipe, and it blew a hole about this long in the side of the pipe. So that's not as robust as cast iron. So at some point, it's newer, but at some point, that pipe's going to all need to be replaced. We also have 38 dead-end pipes of various lengths. So some of these little dead-end cul-de-sacs and streets have dead ends, but we also have Westford Road is along dead end, Fitchburg Road's along dead end, Groton Shirley Road's along dead end, West Main Street's along dead end. So as you go farther out, less water's moving, and the water's getting older and older because it's not turning over that much. So that's where we have a lot of problems with our water quality in the dead ends, because the water's sitting there longer, and more stuff is dissolving, and then when someone does start using it, it stirs things up. It's just a map of the system. I think I mentioned some of these long dead ends. We've got a long dead end going out here. We've got a long dead end out here. We have a long dead end out here. So we do have a lot of these dead end pipes that are water quality problems. If those were looped through, I don't know if anyone's here from Wright Road. Wright Road used to be one of our big problems. The water main came down in here, and we looped that through to Sandy Pond, and it's drastically improved that water quality. Mm-hmm. We also, up on Upper Pleasant Street, I don't think this map's updated, but up on Upper Pleasant Street, they looped through. We put a new pipe in, and then they looped through from the Nashua Street Extension subdivision, and that area has really improved the water quality. But a lot of these dead ends are there's just no way we can fix that. Here's this is a good picture of the inside of a pipe. This was, I think it's on East Street. You can see this is it's a little distorted, so I would guess that's probably an 8-inch pipe, and it's probably got about 3 inches of gunk or tuberculation and stuff built up. So that's what happens is, when you have a change in flow or water quality or something that disturbs that buildup in the pipes, that's what comes out in your faucet. You can see we've got 17% of our pipe is over 100 years old. Another 11% is 70 to 100 years old. So we've got a lot of old pipe that looks like this in the system. One thing I should point out, that we also, in our distribution system, we do what's called a heterotrophic plate count to see if that there's some bacteria growing in there, but it's not harmful bacteria. And we do what's called an HPC, where we actually grow all the bacteria. We take a sample and grow bacteria and see if that bacteria is coming out of the pipe. And they were all pretty low with the exception of one up on the end of Washington Street. And that was even lower. We usually say an HPC of about 500 is where you have a problem. And I think the end of Washington Street was like 240. All the rest were single digits or right around 10. So why do we have so many problems this summer? Well, it started with we were having our media was clogging up at the water treatment plants, and so we were getting a lot of bleed through, and we weren't getting all the iron and manganese out. I've given a couple presentations about the PFAS problem that we're having. So well number 8, which was our best well, like I said, it had 0 iron. We had to shut that well off, and we had to turn well number 1 on, which was the worst well out of all of them. And so then that puts it, so we're already dealing with our media's not removing the iron and manganese very well, and now we've got a lot more iron and manganese to try to get out of the system. And so we were getting a lot of bleed through at the plants. And then in addition to that, we had to do some maintenance on wells 6 and 7. We didn't do those at the same time. We did one and then the other, but that took those out of service for several weeks in the summer. We also had some periods of hot weather. If you remember, you probably don't on a night like tonight remember, but we had some pretty hot weeks, and that affects the water quality also. Just an idea. So this is a picture of, and this is a little different than our filters, but they look like this. We have a different media in them, but they're basically, we have gravel. We have some what's called green sand media with anthracite coal on the top. This is a picture of one of our filters, and it's a little hard to see in perspective, but we're getting these mud balls. And so what's happening is instead of the water going through the media, it's going around the edges and down the sides. And these are a couple of the mud balls that we dug out of the filter. So, so we've been doing chemical cleaning of the media, and we're almost back to normal. But we're still playing around with dosages and still working on the filters. But we are getting pretty good removals right now. Here's a picture of the filter plant. You can see this is 3 of the filters. There's on the other side of the picture, there's another 3. So we have 6 filters in each plant. Both plants are pretty similar. So what are we doing? Somehow or other when gets reformatted, didn't come out right. So we're designing a PFAS removal plant at Grove Pond, so then we can fully use our good well 8, and have a lot more flexibility on how we remove the plant. That should be, it's under design now, it should be under construction starting in the spring, and online in about a year from now. We're cleaning the filters media to improve the removal. It's a long, tedious process. We've got Grove Pond pretty much all done. We're going to probably do another round of cleaning, and we're working at our spec pond. We're optimizing our chemical dosages. When you're changing water quality, you have to change your chemical dosages, and so we've been managing that and trying to optimize it. We're just starting our capital budgeting. I did have media replacement in my budget for 2021, and I'm going to look at moving that up to 2020 for the Grove Pond. And minimizing use, something's hidden here. What do I have? Well, I think that's well 1.
It's minimizing use of GP
well 1. So that's our worst well. So that should, so hopefully the water that we're putting out is in pretty good shape. We also just started our fall flushing program, and we do replace $300,000 worth of water pipes every year. Generally, I have a priority list of which pipes each pipe in the system has been ranked, and I don't necessarily take the worst pipe and do that first, because we may have other infrastructure needs. So for instance, if we want to pave a road, we want to make sure we replace the pipe before we pave the road. So, but generally the pipes are all pretty poor. We just did Pearl Street, which we had a lot of complaints up there. It was rated one of, I think it was the number 3rd worst pipe in the system, and the road needed to be repaved. So we're now doing drainage improvements up there. We're now just starting design of replacement of Prospect Street and Oak Street, and Prospect Street is the number 1 worst pipe in the system. But we don't get a lot of complaints over there, because the courthouse is where the worst pipe is. But it is. You know, we could spend $3 million a year on pipes and still not get all the pipes that need to get done. What else are we doing? We're monitoring the water quality a lot more carefully throughout the system. So we do take our bacteria samples. We're looking at chlorine residuals. We're doing more plate counts, looking at pH out in the system so that we get a better idea of where the problems are. We'll be cleaning the Washington Street standpipe in the spring. We're installing a mixing system in the Washington Street standpipe. One of the problems with the water tank, so we have 1.5 million gallons of water, but you've got one pipe going in, and that's one of the problems with the warm water is the cold water is the last water in and the first water out. So the top of the water, which is about probably half of it, just kind of stays there but moves up and down. There's a little bit of mixing, but so we're putting in a mixing system that should be starting Thursday. And we also are pretty responsive to complaints. If people call with a water complaint, we go out and flush the nearest hydrant. We'll talk to the residents and find out what the problem is, and we can check their water service pipe. We have a method of cleaning service pipes, or also making recommendations if we think it's the hot water heater. So that sort of brings me up to what can people do to help. First of all, they should call the DPW, and I have a slide that gives information, and I'll put that out on the website. But they should call us and tell us, you know, we've got a problem. Here's the problem. It's been going on. We have a series of questions we'll ask, and that helps us resolve whether it's a local or a one-time issue or a neighborhood issue. If you have a house filter, you may want to check that. That can sometimes get plugged up or bleed through. Don't put bleach in your washing machine. Bleach, we add chlorine or bleach to our water to oxidize our iron. So if you have iron in your water, in your washing machine, you add the Clorox or the bleach, you think it's going to make the stain go away, and it makes it worse. We also have the Red Be Gone. If people come down to the DPW, we hand out packets of that, and you can put it in your washing machine or in your dishwasher, or use it to clean your stains in your toilet and sinks. Like I said, we do $300,000 a year of water improvements. We've got probably $20 million worth of projects, and so if however much the public can help us with our water improvement budget, we appreciate that. And be patient. I think our water department is very dedicated. They work hard. They're very responsive, and if you have a problem and you call us, we'll get to you. So when you report your water issues, this is the information we need, and we have a form that when you call, Mona or Pam can walk you through it. A lot of times people ask for me, and I talk to them because I've been doing municipal water engineering for 40 years. So I can ask a lot of the questions too and get a better idea of what the problem is. But in general, this helps us resolve what the problem is. We also are starting to put this in a database on maps, and then I'll use that information to make future water main improvements.
Parker, I want to thank you for this. You have been on top of this issue and have given regular updates, and it's greatly appreciated. You say Red Be Gone. I can remember about 20 years ago, well, I was still in uniform, white uniform, and I watched them at my parents' house. And they weren't white when they came out, and I was freaking calling the command, and at that time, it wasn't Red Be Gone, it was DD7, which worked great.
Yeah, there's all sorts of different names, Rust Be Gone, Rover, it's sort of all the same stuff. And I always tell people when they come and get it, be a little careful, because I remember when I was using some when my son was small, and I was hand washing one of his shirts, and it was white with blue stripes, and the blue stripes turned orange, and then I rinsed it out, and the blue stripes turned back to blue. So they say on the packet to do a little test before you put your Ralph Lauren underwear in there.
Also, some of that gook on your dishes, Brillo pad. I did do that on my own dishes. A little Brillo pad.
The old wives' tale was put a couple tablespoons of Tang, the astronauts drink, in your dishwasher, and that will get some of the stuff out.
Never heard that.
Yeah. I've heard it from a lot of people. I
never heard that about Tang. Yeah.
Cleans the dishwasher.
Yeah. Huh. It gives it the nice orange scent too.
I don't know. I'd rather go to the DPW and get the Red Be Gone.
Hold on.
Are you
Yes.
allowed to ask questions?
Yes.
Okay.
Please state your name.
Julie Wozniak, and I live on Groton Shirley Road. And I know we're a problem road. I think I've spoken to you before. I've spoken to Robert before as well. I'm very concerned. We bought our house 12 and a half years ago, brand new, and we've had problems since the day we bought it. It has cost us thousands and thousands of dollars to live there because of the water, above and beyond what we pay in taxes and what we pay for our mortgage and everything else. I'm beyond frustrated. I'm almost speechless. I'm so annoyed, to the point I want to leave there. So my concern with that is I can't sell my house with orange and yellow toilets and stained everything in my house. I bathe my daughter in a tub that very often has sediment in it. It's disgusting and concerning.
Yeah,
And
so
I've been told that this is a huge project that's been known for many, many years, and that the budget just can't support fixing it. And I'm really sick and tired of hearing that.
So so you're right up here at the end of this. You're probably the last house on this.
I'm not the last one, but I'm in the middle of the new
Yeah.
houses.
So you've got actually probably a fairly new pipe in your house, but you've got this old
Dead-end pipe.
pipe that runs all the way in through here. So the solution to that is to loop this around.
Yeah.
That's about $800,000. So,
But
and actually, we've looked at, could we do that over, a little bit each year. I mean, like I said, we have $300,000 a year, and so that would take our whole budget for a few years unless we had a capital improvement. We do have a capital improvement proposal to replace West Main Street pipe. I think that's about the same, $800,000. The difference here is that we have an interconnection with Devon's, and right now with the pipe that's there, we can't use that interconnection. So if we had an emergency, either Devon's had an emergency or we had an emergency, it wouldn't do any good. So we need to replace that pipe for emergency purposes. But we can. I can talk to the capital committee about doing that. We need to pave that road too. That's got our that's our worst road now. Yeah. But be careful what you wish for, because when you pave the road, you'll get people driving 60 miles an hour down there. So, but that is on our pavement index, condition index. That's probably one of the worst roads in town also. So that we, I can talk to the capital committee and see if that's something we want to do. I mean, it is a value to the rest of the system. We had a water main break right here in front of Tiny's a couple of years ago, and we shut off 400 people, this whole part of town. We had another break just this summer right in front of the credit union. No, in front of the credit union we had one, but we backfed from Devon's. We can go and connect up to a hydrant, but it really it doesn't. It gives you a little bit of water, but not 100% water.
Mark, do we only do the flushing twice a year?
We do system-wide flushing twice a year. And we also, last spring, didn't get to do a full flushing because we had lost that one well, so we didn't have enough supply to actually to do the full system. And I think in the fall we had some other issues. So we're out now doing a full system flush. But then we do flush dead ends. Rick, how often would you say you go out there to Groton Shirley Road?
The known problem areas, Groton Shirley Road, Groton School Road, West Main, maybe even frequently every several weeks.
Yeah.
And I've called and Rick comes out right away. I mean, I have no problem with that. I mean, the response is fantastic. It's just an overall, I need it fixed.
Do you see an improvement after they come out
Only
and
in the
flush?
smell.
Just in the smell?
I agree, and it doesn't last long. We're in Laura Schimmel. I'm in the neighborhood across from her on Vernon Street, along with half my neighbors here, and we have the exact same problem. The smell, the staining, the sediment coming out of the pipes. It's continuous. It doesn't matter.
What street were you?
I'm on Vernon,
Vernon. Okay.
and basically, our houses are all within the other streets in our neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody's on Vernon, and I do see them come through and do the flushing. I only see them twice a year, I want to say they come through, but
They come through a lot to flush it. The problem is it's just another dead end that needs
Yeah.
They
So
came in last Tuesday,
It's
and by
continuous.
Friday,
Yeah,
the smell
it
was
stinks
back.
again.
So they can come every week, and we'll keep getting
It will
this
make a
back.
difference.
Yeah.
So one thing we're doing for that neighborhood, and there's a development that's going in right here, and we're requiring him to bring the water main to this point, and then the town will connect it through. So we have an easement that goes through there. So now your water, instead of all coming all the way down here and going around and coming up into the neighborhood, now you'll get flow through both directions. So hopefully that will be done in the summer.
Of next year.
Okay, well, you answered my question in the summer, because I've been living up there for quite a few years, and I've been told that loop is going to be taking place, and but I don't know how many years. But I'm glad to hear it's coming this summer. But I'd have to repeat, problem the same. Rick has been responsive. I've called to have water flush, but I'll tell you, I've given up calling because it doesn't last long enough.
Yeah.
And I've replaced my hot water heater. I've replaced the tube that goes into the hot water heater. Somebody takes a shower in the house upstairs, you can smell it all over the house.
And it lasts all day.
Yeah, it's and this has been going on for a long, long time.
13 years on Groton Shirley Road at least.
The thing is, at $300,000 a year, you can't replace those pipes. And for 40 more years, you wouldn't be able to replace this entire town. So something has to give, because we're not the only area that's having this horrible problem. You can't bathe, you can't cook without having this sediment everywhere. It's just too bad.
Turns your hair orange.
Yeah, I have to
It's
do
a good
mineralization
extra
treatment on my
Shampoo
hair.
just to get the orange out of your hair. You
Yeah, I understand.
can't use the red out stuff on your head.
Oh.
So, you know, it affects every part of your life.
Every single day.
So we have people here you're from the Rosewood neighborhood
Yeah.
and Groton Shirley Road. Anyone from other?
So I actually posted on Facebook. I was one of those social media people. And on my thread, there were 50, 60 comments. So people were writing down the streets that they were on. So I got a map
Okay.
with all the listed names. So
Right.
it is, if you look at this, I think I'm holding it the right way. It is pretty widespread on just Facebook. So our whole town is on Facebook. This is one select group. it's a pretty widespread issue. These are a lot of the dead ends like you were talking about, but it's not just this little area right here that is represented by the people who are here today. So we're all coming,
Right,
everybody.
but so, and as I said, if you call the DPW, then we'll collect the information, because some of it may be just related to some of the problems we had this summer.
But for
Some of
6
it
years?
may be, well, I don't know if they're all from 6 years. Like, for instance, we had a call last week from Sandy Pond Road, and I don't think I'd ever heard of a call on Sandy Pond Road. And we don't know what the reason was, but we went out and fleshed. But we do have problem areas. I know I saw on your map, you have Wright Road, and anyone here from Wright Road? When we put the loop in, I got a lot of comments from people who lived on Wright Road on how much better the water was. So,
So we're hoping this summer.
For us.
connection-
for that connection, I need, the issue is I need to get the developer to put his pipe in. And so I'll push them to find out when they're doing that. I think he just sold his lots in his first phase, so he's probably moving on in the second.
I do want to comment though, your employees are a complete testament
Amazing.
to the reason why we moved to Air. The snow plowing, the water, every part of Air,
Responsiveness.
I brag about. So it's one of those things that we really do appreciate your employees.
Yeah, especially Rick.
Mr. Clark?
Thank you. On the development that's going to do that looping,
Yeah.
you say you have to get the developer to do it. Is there any way that, or is it too late to make that part of him getting building permits and have to put the, to do something?
It's just a matter of timing with him. So, and I don't know what his schedule is. I haven't talked to him about it. But I know he just sold his first phase, and it's up on the end of Pleasant Street.
Is it required to do?
Yeah, he's required to put it up to the property line, and then I have to take it under the rail trail, and then we have an easement. You know that new house they built on Jonathan or Douglas?
Yeah.
We got an easement through there, so.
So we're sure that this will fix it.
Well, it'll make it better. You know, part of the problem is, you saw that picture of that pipe. Well, all the way from here down to probably here, looks like that. It's just old
Is there a
pipe.
time frame about when they're going to replace that?
I think that would probably be a low priority. Probably a higher priority would be looping this around and looping this through. So now what happens is you get water flowing in different directions, and it doesn't stagnate as much, and it doesn't sit in the pipes and pick up the taste and odors and rust.
Aside from getting a whole house filter, replacing the A-node, flushing our water tank, and just trying to run our water as much as possible, and call you to flush the hydrants, what else can we do?
Does your hot water smell?
Yeah, it smells the whole house.
So you probably want to flush that out
We
a
do
couple
that
times a
One
year?
time,
Okay.
monthly. My water bill's huge because I just let my water run for hours.
There's actually a treatment for hot water tanks that are on wells, because I have a second house that's on a well. If you put hydrogen peroxide, it's a certain ratio. I think the town of Franklin, New Hampshire, I found it on their website. If you fill it with a certain level of hydrogen peroxide, it kills all the bacteria. And I treated my hot water heater up in Maine, I think it's 4 years ago, and we've never had the smell since. So that might be another thing you can try, at least for the hot water side of things, that might help.
Yeah.
Just pour it right into your hot water heater.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
certain, the instructions gave a certain method that you have to go through, and I think it was 3 bottles of hydrogen peroxide for a 40 or 50 gallon tank.
Okay. Mr. Clark?
Just one last question, Mike. Is there any way that the town can do their part of getting underneath the rail trail and stuff up to where the developer would bring the line, so that when he does it, we're ready to do it and not wait for him to get there down there?
Yeah, no, that's the plan, is for us to go out to bid in the spring to put that in.
Okay.
Well, I'm sorry to hear so many people are having so many problems. Thank you for coming and ensuring that it's brought to our attention. And also thank you for the compliments for the DPW workers. At least we got a positive out of that.
And as I mentioned, put on your, on the social media to call us so that we can put those maps together. because one of my criteria when I'm picking which pipes, what the score is water quality problems. So I was surprised because one of the people that I know, someone showed me some of the comments. One of the people that I know on that street was one of the biggest people talking about it. And I said, she's never said anything to me about it.
I think a lot of those people, though, mention that they've always had great water. Some of them.
Yeah.
Not all. There was a lot of people in our boat also, but a lot of them just said, I don't understand. This is, sudden. So I think a lot of them are attributed to the summer issues. But then there's the long-term people like us that are just beyond.
Right.
Yeah, and we can probably, I know Rick can tell you exactly where the people are. We did Washington Street, which is now being paved. I replaced most of Pleasant Street. That has all good pipe on it. And I'll tell you one of the reasons why I did Pleasant Street, because the lady at the end called me every week.
So is that what I
So, no, I think you do, don't you?
Honey, don't tell them that. They're going to show up at your house and knock on the door. So, all right, Robert.
Yeah. So, Madam Chair, one of the things, and I know the board knows this, but I think for everybody's benefit, and Superintendent Wetzel had the point on one of his slides. Let's take the Groton Shirley Road, and I've talked with Julie about this numerous times, and the solution is to loop it. And if the superintendent could loop it tomorrow, we would loop it tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
It's approximately, let's just say for the sake of discussion, $800,000, as you know. And so how these capital projects work in the town is, when you mentioned, we have a capital planning committee that's composed of residents in certain departments. And we're going to start to meet in December. And this is for example, one of the projects we're going to discuss. Let me emphasize discuss.
Mm-hmm.
How that process works, the superintendent would get to the best of his ability, cost estimates and so forth, say for the Groton Shirley loop. The capital planning committee has competing requests from various departments, fire, police, other DPW and so forth. They vet all of that and would make a recommendation ultimately to the Board of Selectmen through the budget process. Now in Ayer, any project that's over $300,000 by the town's financial policies requires a thing called a debt exclusion. You may have heard of some of that recently.
Yeah.
The debt exclusion requires, assuming that the Board of Selectmen were to recommend what the Capital Planning Committee recommends on this project would have to be approved by town meeting, which is in the spring, which requires a 2/3 and also a ballot as well on a capital. So there's a high threshold on that. So what the takeaway is, and I know that the selectmen know this, is that, again, unfortunately there's no quick fix. Even when we do have the funding, we have to go through all of those mechanisms. But I think for Groton Shirley Road, I know that we have talked about it, the superintendent and I, to have that discussion with the Capital Planning Committee. All of those meetings are open to the public. We can let you know when we anticipate to discuss that. I am sympathetic. I think the superintendent is that the ideal solution is to loop it. The problem is the cost. I'm not saying it can't be done, and nobody's saying that. It's just the challenge, with that. And the superintendent is correct too. Your road, in terms of the paving, is another issue as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you're beyond frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I'm sorry, it sounds like what you're saying, though, if I understood what you were saying correctly, is that even if it gets to the point where it could be done, it still needs to pass a vote and everything else, and that just seems all extremely unlikely that the whole town is going to be on board for our street to be looped in. I don't feel like that's going to benefit the town, so to me, it almost sounds like it's not going
But
to happen.
I think you'd be incorrect on that, because they may feel that at that particular moment, maybe it's not going to benefit, but now they've got a friend coming in, or one of their children is moving, and maybe they're going to go to that street. And the idea of that it doesn't benefit because it's not their street, hold on, Rick, is incorrect, because if one street is having a problem, another street is having a problem. So if somebody wants their street to have, to get corrected, they're going to have to realize that they're going to have to correct another street that may not directly impact them, so, it's a town meeting vote, and like he said, the town meeting, that's where we're able to have a real good conversation about it, and then it's also a ballot question. And we've had debt exclusion projects passed. So I don't know. I don't want you walking out here thinking that, if it's, hold on everybody. I can see hands popping up left and right. I don't want you thinking that just because it happens to be a street you live on and it's not a street that I don't live on, that I'm not going to be concerned. Because what's happening on your street or on your street can happen on my street. Okay? So, Rick, you had your hand up first.
I think another selling point that will benefit the town is those dead-end sections have very low fire flows as well, too. If you loop the system, you'll have increased fire flows, you'll probably have lower insurance rates. And I think it's also a public safety benefit as well.
Good point. Who else was?
Lisa.
It's me.
Oh, hi, Lisa.
Robert
should have recognized the way you waved your hand.
Robert's correct in the fact that a debt exclusion is required for general fund projects over $300,000, not for the water enterprise. Does not have to go to a ballot question. It has to go to town meeting and get past that town meeting, because we don't raise that through taxes, we raise it through the water rates.
Okay.
And we build surplus purposely, although kind of got shot to hell with this PFAS thing last year. So, but we try to absorb that through the rates increase.
And I will mention, we look for grants on everything possible too, and there haven't been talk of a water main grant program. There is a low interest loan program, and we are working diligently to get our water treatment plant for the PFAS paid for by someone other than the ratepayers. So if we can pull that out of the books, then we have some other money also. So we're hoping the Army's paying for their pollution of our wells.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
And keep what, Mary?
Oh, no, I just wanted to say we needed more than 100 people at town meeting.
Yes, we need people to show up at town meeting also. So make sure you keep in contact with the DPW for any problems. Thank you, and remember, you're always welcome here.
Thank you.
And come to town meeting. Monday night.
All right, you know what, while everybody's shuffling for a second, I'm gonna run out of room for a quick second.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You should have something mailed to your house.
Welcome back.
Thanks for having me. My name is Ed Starzek. I am a project manager with Mass Development's real estate group over at Devon's. I'm here tonight just for a quick check-in with you guys on Vicksburg Square. I think we spoke. Did everyone get the one-pager?
Yes.
That was circulated? Good. we met a few times last spring to discuss in very broad terms sort of the parameters of what a zoning change might look like, the range of zoning changes. The one pager in front of you, it represents sort of our takeaway from that outreach over the spring and into the summer. That's meeting with all the towns, with the planning boards, boards of selectmen, Devon's residents through the Devon's committee, as well as informal conversations with some developers as well, trying to pull together what we see as a feasible, the parameters of a feasible zoning change. So that's what you have here. Creation of a new standalone zoning district as opposed to an overlay, allowing for multifamily residential uses and senior residential uses, in addition to most of the uses that are currently allowed at Vicksburg Square today. Amendment of the housing cap to allow for up to 300 additional units to be located at Vicksburg. And then on the affordability question, we've decided, or we've come to the opinion that 25% is the magic number, no more, no less, just that any development there should be at 25%. So the next, so that's mass developments. That's what we would like to bring to the voters for consideration, or we'd like to start that process through the hearing process. So that's what I'm really here tonight to talk about, is setting up a public hearing under Chapter 498 for November, hopefully. I'd like to get it in before Thanksgiving if possible. I'd like to do one in Harvard and one in Ayer. So I'd be looking for a venue here. I don't know if you'd like me to try to piggyback on a planning board meeting that's been done before, or on a board of selectmen meeting. I bet your agendas are probably pretty full. Or we can do a standalone meeting as well. But at that hearing, we would basically elaborate on this one pager. We would bring in actual zoning language, so it would show you the change that's proposed, as well as background information for voters who are not familiar with Devon's and Vicksburg Square, so that people could get up to speed on the question. So basically, just looking for your go-ahead to schedule a hearing for November.
What is your, I guess, the master timeline that you're looking at? So you want November for the public hearings. When would you look to bring this to a vote?
We're looking at late spring of next.
Late spring.
We'd
Okay.
piggyback on someone's Springtown meeting next year, probably the last one of the three of you. These would be the first two public hearings. We would definitely have to have more in the spring, because I believe you have to have a hearing within like 45 days of the Supertown meeting vote or something like that. Mm-hmm. So this would sort of be starting the conversation with the voting public as a whole.
And you're not, as you said in your last visit, there's not going to be a proposal on the table to review. It's just going to be the changes to the agreement. What do you anticipate, looking at the last bullet point, other potential miscellaneous changes to the bylaws in the master plan, outside of the increase in the housing cap and some zoning changes?
The miscellaneous changes are fairly minor. For example, right now the definition of multifamily housing in the Devon's bylaw is capped at, I believe, something like 8 units. So we would need to revise that to reflect that you could have larger buildings. There's some goals and objectives parts of the bylaw and the reuse plan that spell out the previous intention for those buildings was that they would be high-tech incubator space, basically. So we would want to amend that to say high-tech incubator and/or multifamily residential, that sort of thing. But these 4 points are really the big moves.
Okay. I have no objections to a public hearing.
I have no objections.
Process needs to start somewhere.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you need a motion or just?
No, I just wanted
okay.
to check in with you on the record, and I'll work with Robert and Carly to find the appropriate time and
Okay.
place to do that, if that's okay with you.
Sounds great.
That
All
was
right.
great.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Thanks,
Thanks, Ed.
Red Sox won.
What?
They won.
Yay!
It's over. They won.
Yahoo!
8-2.
Nice, we get some happiness. All right, Robert.
Madam Chair, Selectman Hood, thank you. I want to thank the town finance manager for keeping me straight that the water enterprise is just a vote of town meeting. So thank you, Lisa. In the interest of time, you have all of the warrants that were reviewed and approved in the packet by me since the board last met. And the majority of the time of the administration has been spent obviously preparing for town meeting, various issues with the field project, as well as the beginning of the whole budget process. And be happy to answer any questions the board has or provide a more detailed report at the next meeting. But in the interest of time, the first action item is I'm seeking board approval of amendment number 4 to the agreement between the town of Ayer and Mass Development for Veterans Services. As the board is aware, we have a long-standing contract to provide the veteran services to any veterans on Devons. Mr. Detillion does an excellent job. Amendment number 4 basically extends the existing contract to August 31st of 2019. There are no other changes, but the amendment is an extension of the agreement. There are no other changes to the agreement at this time, and be looking for approval with signature by the chair.
I have no objections.
No,
Going down the wrong
neither
pipe.
I'll make a motion to amendment number 4 to the agreement of the Veteran Services with Devons as presented for signature by the chair.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Chair says aye.
Thank you. Next, Madam Chair, if there is an objection, I'd ask the town planner, Mr. Archambault, to join me at the table. As we discussed at the last meeting, I asked him to come to just give a very brief update to the board on the town meeting warrant articles that pertain to the zoning bylaw. And in the interest of time, we'll keep that short. I just want to point out 3 things for the discussion. The first is the planning board met on October 9th to conduct a public hearing on the zoning articles. And though the statute allows for that to happen, moving forward, we won't bring any articles to the Board of Selectmen until the planning board has done all of its due diligence, because the planning board has voted to recommend to town meeting that town meeting pass over Article 7 and Article 9. Now, Mr. Archambault will make a presentation at town meeting on the remaining articles, and the planning board chairman and other members will be at town meeting to answer any questions. Specifically, the planning board on Article 7 felt that they wanted to do some more due diligence on that, and therefore recommending that town meeting pass on it. And as the board knows, the reason they have to actually pass on it, if they take any action on it that doesn't approve it, then there's a 2-year waiting period on zoning articles. Article 9 is the accessory apartments. It's the position of the administration, the building commissioner, the town planner, myself. We spent the whole summer vetting that. That was originally going to be part of the March town meeting that we had, the special town meeting. The building commissioner wanted to do some more due diligence. We met weekly with that over the summer, but certain members of the planning board feel that it's not ready, and the planning board voted to recommend to pass on it. So,
weren't these like recommended by the planning board so that when they came to the Board of Selectmen, I mean,
yeah,
I'm a little confused
Yeah.
as to how that happened, as to, any article that the planning board is putting forward, they should have already approved it, and not this whole back thing. So maybe in the future, when something like this comes up, and I'm sure you will discuss how to do it, but there should always, the planning board should also look at their meeting schedule to look at articles prior to meeting.
Yes.
It going to the board.
Madam Chair, I couldn't agree with you more. In fact, Mr. Archambault and I talked at length of that. Moving forward, any articles that are going to go forth on the warrant, all of those steps with the planning board will have been satisfactorily completed. The planning board, as far as we're concerned, had these articles for almost 6 weeks. We were taken by surprise at that meeting. We did not expect, because Mr. Archambault, myself, the other department heads heard, frankly, there were no concerns. I mean, they're relatively routine, but
Because there's also a warrant review system.
But again, being an elected board, that's their recommendation to town meeting. I think that my opinion, it's up to town meeting when we get there, should honor that recommendation and pass on Article 7 and 9. The takeaway is moving forward, and we have a plan, it will be all scheduled up so that when it comes to the Board of Selectmen, all of the due diligence has been done. So that's the first issue, is the passing of Article 7 and 9. The second, real quick before we touch briefly on the zoning articles, Article 11 is the article related to the schools. And I know that Selectman Livingston and I attended the most recent special meeting of the school committee, and both she and I addressed the school committee and trying to work with them and Shirley to move forward. As the board is aware, the Shirley town meeting passed the article last night. They had to do a motion and so forth. This article, again, is to discuss the funding and so forth, and is advisory in nature, as it was in Shirley. And one of the things I'd like the board to discuss, when respectfully through the chair, when Mark finishes, is the possibility of posting a meeting of the Board of Selectmen for right after town meeting for the single purpose of calling the debt exclusion election. Now, obviously, if town meeting doesn't pass the article, we can cover that then, but if...
Well, actually, that brings up the question, because the article states that it also has to go to an election. So, when you think about it, what town meeting is really being asked on Monday night, as far as that article, is, are you aware?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not what the question is asking.
Right.
But really what they're being asked is, are you aware of this question? Because we're going to go to the ballot with this question.
Correct.
So it is, so even if town meeting said no, it's still going to the ballot. So we would still be have to meet to set the election.
Yep. So I would, after Mark finishes his brief presentation, I would respectfully ask the board to authorize posting a meeting of the Board of Selectmen at the conclusion of the town meeting, so we can call the debt exclusion election. Ms. Copeland, myself, and town council, we made it very clear from this last meeting, the dates, everything will be vetted, completely teed up, so that basically the board will be good to go. But I think that would be the interest of time in terms of scheduling that.
Yes.
Okay. So with that, I will turn it over to Mark, who's is going to touch briefly upon what each of the remaining articles does or doesn't do, and if there's any questions on that, obviously through the chair to Mark. So take it away.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Board of Selectmen. My name is Mark Archambault, the town planner. Before I get into the actual warrant articles, I just wanted to give a brief description of how some of them came to be. The building commissioner is on the front lines of administering the zoning bylaw. So people come into his office for applications for decks or sheds and accessory structures. So several of these warrant articles actually originated with him, and I reviewed those with him to try to fine-tune the language. And I wanted to point point that out, since it's sort of a cooperative effort, both on his part and my part, to amend the bylaw to fine-tune items that need a little bit of tweaking. Not to be concerned, but, when you have a new bylaw, especially one that was prepared by a consultant who doesn't live in the town, sometimes there are slight things that need to be tweaked. So I will go to Article 2, which is the definition section of the bylaw. The first definition has to do with accessory apartments, and you see it stricken there because Article 9, which would have addressed accessory apartments in great detail, has been withdrawn, so to speak, so that definition no longer applies. In home occupation, the new text is the blue in here, so hopefully that shows up. What the building commissioner found is that there were several people or several instances where there were people who had home occupations, or they were claiming to have home occupations, that were storing large pieces of outdoor equipment in their driveway or in front of their yard. And we wanted to make it clear that, with the exception of personal vehicles or smaller vehicles like Class 2 vehicles or ones that don't require a commercial license, as well as one-ton pickup trucks, that any home occupation that does require some equipment or vehicles to be stored requires a special permit from the ZBA. So that is hopefully will result in a cleaner appearance to the town, especially in the residential neighborhoods where home occupations will be taking place. Lot corner, or corner lot. There are many lots in town that not only front on one or two roads, but possibly three. So we wanted to make it clear that the lot with two or three adjacent sides would be considered a corner lot. This has come up in a few cases in the general residence zoning district, which is the more densely developed part of town. So that's really just a clarification measure. For lot frontage, again, this ties in with the previous one. It was found that there are several lots in town that have multiple frontages, and it was a difficult determination in some cases by the building commissioner to decide which would be the front yard, so to speak, because there are different front, side, and rear setbacks. So it was decided that the cleanest way to address this was to state that the front yard shall correspond to the street with the longest frontage, or the longest length. So that is a clean, easy way of delineating the front, side, and rear lot lines.
Would this possibly impact people's addresses though? Because if it's considered, to me, I was considered the front. If I had a corner lot, or say this was longer, but my address was on, say, Main Street here,
mm-hmm.
What would be the impact of saying, okay, now it's the side of the house, it tends to be the front just because it's the longest frontage? Is that
That's
just
a good
curiosity question?
I will bring that up with the
Okay.
building commissioner. I would tend to think that probably not, since I believe the fire department has a big role to play in setting the addresses for 911
Are you saying
and everything.
existing or new?
Existing.
Oh, yeah, so they would be grandfathered under zoning, so
Right.
they wouldn't have to change their address or
Just
anything.
curious.
Right.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, if there are no questions there, I just had a picture of one-ton pickup trucks in case there were a question. And I found one in the lower left corner that dates back to 1940, which
Same year as my car.
That's
I was
newer.
not aware that the distinction of one-ton and two-ton pickup trucks goes back that far, Okay, Article 3 also originated with the building commissioner. Basically, it's clarifying what type of applications are subject to site plan review in the town, which means a planning board permit for usually non-residential uses, but it could include multifamily. So item 4, under applicability, we just made a singular, whoops, I was trying to, there is no laser pointer. But,
No, you can use.
oh, I can use this? Okay. Yep, so we're just putting a singular there and there to make it clear that when if somebody required a special permit to put in a single-family or a two-family dwelling, that would not also require site plan review just for one house, which, is kind of silly. So it is, this will save applicants time and money from requiring both a special exception or a special permit from the zoning board and a site plan from the planning board. Under exceptions, B, number 3, pre-existing non-conforming multifamily structures adding 4 or fewer additional parking spaces are exempt from site plan review. The planning board had a case earlier in the summer where there was a pre-existing multifamily structure that was adding on a new apartment, a 5th apartment, and that required additional parking, 2 additional parking spaces. The building commissioner interpreted line 1 up there to be an alteration of a multifamily structure. So he sent that case to the planning board for site plan review, which the planning board did. It became, I think, more overly contentious than it needed to be for just 2 parking spaces. So, the building commissioner certainly has the ability to delineate parking spaces in a multifamily parking lot. So we felt that that should be an additional exception to site plan review. So again, this should make it easier and hopefully reduce the caseload of simple cases that need to go to the ZBA as well as to the planning board. Okay, Article 4, do not be frightened by all the language here. One thing that I discovered when reviewing the bylaw as prepared by the consultant was that, first of all, there are 2 ways in which new residential developments are usually approved. The most common way is through subdivision approval, where you put in a new road and you carve out lots. And it could either be a conventional grid-type subdivision or an open space subdivision, which I will be describing later, where you have smaller lots enabling you to preserve a certain percentage of open space. However, because of Ayer's relatively dense zoning districts for general residence, general business, where some residential is allowed, as well as a mixed-use district, I could conceive of a situation where somebody would be proposing multiple units in a condominium-style development that would be on one lot, no subdivision, no new road. And I found that there was no method to calculate the number of units within the bylaw that would take into account wetlands and steep slopes and that sort of thing, which I think was an oversight. So in order to remedy that situation, I took the same exact formula that applies to calculating units and subdivisions, and I took it and I apply it to site plan situations. This should probably not come up that often, but just in case, for the precautionary principle, I believe it's wise for the town to have this in there. What I'll do in this slide is just give you a hypothetical. Everything you see on this slide can be summarized very quickly here, which I will go through at town meeting. The first step is to calculate what's called the net developable area, which is the entire area of the lot being subdivided, minus the steep slopes and minus the wetlands. So say you have a 40-acre parcel and there are 10 acres of wetlands on it. You subtract the 10 acres of wetlands from the 40 acres and you come up with 30 net acres. When you multiply that by the number of square feet in an acre, you get the number on the right, 1.3 million square feet. Then you divide that by the lot size of the applicable zoning district, which in this case is 40,000 square feet, and you come up with the number 32.67, which is rounded up to be, whoops, I have to go back, which is rounded up to be 33 base units. Base maximum is a term that's used because there may be physical circumstances on a lot or a parcel that prevent you from getting the 33. You might calculate 33, but the way the wetlands are configured, the way the slopes are configured, the way the road in front of the property is configured may prevent you from getting that number. But that is a number that allows the planning board to work from. So this rectifies that, I think, omission in the bylaw where site plan was not fully addressed. So it's relatively simple, even though it looks a little frightening on this previous slide. But okay, and the next, this article, again, came from the work of the building commissioner and discovering little tweaks that need to be made. The definition of corner lot in this section for Article 5 is the same that was in the Article 2 for definitions. It's just repeated here because that item was repeated. For 6.3D, you see this term unroofed porches. An unroofed porch is essentially a deck. You know, it's a porch without the cover. So the way this is worded, this would allow, if this was not stricken out, this would allow decks to be located closer to the lot line than the existing setbacks. It allows these types of structures here to be to encroach into the minimum yard or open space to some degree, which may make sense for cornices and eaves and, you know, even steps, window sills, but it was a feeling of the building commissioner that we didn't want to have decks encroaching within 5 feet, say, of somebody's lot line. So by striking that unroofed porches, decks have to comply with the setbacks for accessory structures just like any other accessory structure in town. 5.3G, right here, one thing that he discovered in administering the setbacks for accessory structures, which are fairly minor because the lot sizes in much of the town are fairly small, is that there were cases where it made sense to have a little bit more flexibility because sometimes, especially for existing homes, you have, you know, structures closer to the home or closer to the lot line than what the zoning calls for now for new construction. So he believed that this could be rectified by putting the qualifier at the end, unless approved by the building and fire departments. So if there is a situation where somebody is applying for an accessory structure such as a shed, either very close to the house or close to a fence or whatever, if the building inspector has doubt as to the safety of that, he will consult with the fire department as to the proper location of these structures. So that provides them a little bit more flexibility in administering this section of the bylaw while also providing for adequate fire safety. Okay, Article 6, another minor oversight in the bylaw was when you have an open space residential development, which I will describe here, basically in the bylaw right now, open space residential development, which you see on the right here, is a form of subdivision where you are able to preserve, you know, green areas or open space, and you have basically the same number of units as you would get in a conventional or grid subdivision. The problem with these grid subdivisions is you take down all the trees, you often get drainage problems, you destroy the topography. We've seen this in several subdivisions that have been approved in the last 20 years in town. So a better way to develop, especially given that most of the remaining developable land is pretty wild in the northern part of town, is to do an open space residential development. This provision exists in the bylaw now as it was approved in March, so the OSRD is not new. However, what that bylaw did not take into account in March is taking into account the amount of wetlands and steep slopes that could be included in the open space. So I'll just go back to this. So what the blue text mentions is that the amount of wetlands and steep slopes, which are over 20%, that can count towards the minimum required amount of open space, which in this case is 50% of the entire tract being subdivided, shall be directly proportional to the amount of such lands in the what we call the parent parcel or the area being subdivided. And I'll give an illustration of how this works right here. You pretend that this entire rectangle is a area being subdivided. It's 40 acres. So a 40-acre parcel would require 50% to be preserved as open space, which is 20 acres. So everything to the left of this vertical line is the open space. And it turns out that 25%, or a quarter of this entire parcel being subdivided, is wetlands. So under the provision that the article is describing, the same amount of wetlands that is found on the entire site, the same proportion, can be located in the open space. And the reason for this is, in the past, for old versions of this, they used to be called cluster, and many of these bylaws were written back in the 70s and 80s. They didn't specify that, you had a maximum amount of wetlands or steep slopes that could go in the open space. So developers would put all of the wetlands and all of the steep slopes and all of the land you couldn't build on anyway in the open space. So people would say, well, what use is it? What good is it? You can't build on it anyhow. So you end up with these smaller lots in open space that's all wet that nobody can use anyhow. So the intent of OSRD, as it is in our bylaw and in best planning practices, is to provide a suitable area of upland, dry land, that can be used for recreation or wildlife habitat. You could, connect it with other areas of open space. You may even have some trails in there. So this direct proportionality is what's recommended in best practices now for this type of development. So, it's pretty straightforward, though, involves a little bit of math, but hopefully this graphic explains it fairly clearly. And if there are no questions about that one, I will go to the last warrant article. Again, this relates to parking for multifamily structures. In the bylaw now, it mentions that for new construction, that you cannot locate a parking space closer than 8 feet to a building wall or 10 feet from a lot line. But when you apply that standard to the pre-existing non-conforming multifamily structures that in many cases were built in the late 1800s, back when those old water mains were being put in, if you apply that standard, people wouldn't be able to get the parking that they absolutely need. And in many cases, this is the situation as it exists now. So what this amendment is doing is recognizing the current reality of the built environment in the town and providing a little more flexibility for where these parking spaces can be provided. So those are the zoning amendments that you might say survived the planning board public hearing last week. So.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, I had a. Oh, I'll give
So-
that to you now.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, though a vote isn't required, I'm assuming that the board agrees that we will post a meeting of the board at the conclusion of the town meeting for the purposes of the debt exclusion.
Yes.
Okay.
Do you think we could ask the town moderator to actually announce at the beginning of town meeting that immediately following town meeting, there'll be a quick 5-minute Board of Selectmen meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
We will make that request.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you, Mark.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
The next item is the license for National Grid electrical equipment, a grant of easement. And I want to thank Ms. Antonellis for putting together the summary within my memo to you about what this does. As you see in the packet, back in 2005, the National Grid received a request from the town to put in a new electrical distribution service to the fire station property, which we all know is at the corner of Park and West Main. And that was done. There was not a town meeting vote at the time in 2005 to authorize the execution of that easement. So the National Grid issued a license, which is a temporary measure. And then in good faith, in the fall of 2005, the town meeting approved the execution of this agreement. However, as we have all learned through the whole title search by National Grid's real estate department, there were some issues with the title. Additionally, there were changes in personnel at National Grid. We now fast forward almost 13 years to 2018. Back in 2016, National Grid started pursuing this again. And what I'm looking for this evening is the board to approve the grant of easement for signature by the board. And by doing this, that easement can be officially recorded, and it will clear up the title issues and resolve this issue. So again, we're dealing with a land issue, if you will. The easement has been used for the electrical distribution. You'll see a diagram of it in there. The document has been reviewed by our town council as well. So this will allow this to all get cleaned up.
The email chain on this is about 60 long. I can't wait to move it out of my inbox. I really can't.
Yeah, I can see why.
Yeah.
All right.
Do you have any issues?
I have no issues.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the grant of easement with between National Grid and the Town of Ayer as presented by the board to the Board of Selectmen for authorization by the board.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Chair says aye.
Thank you.
All right, we cleaned that up.
And then, Madam Chair, if there is an objection from the board, I'd ask Ms. Cabri to just join me at the table, and I'll pass, this is a hard copy of what's also on the screen. At the last Selectmen's meeting,
I have this.
question was brought up from the public, from Ms. Spinner, about the status of the capital project debt. And so Ms. Capri has done two things. We have a graph here for a visual, and then also the specifics. The handout, keep in mind, does not take into account any school projects. It's just the town projects. So on the graphical end, you can see that, of course, the debt will begin to drop considerably by 2022. And then if you go to the next slide, you can see of existing, so in the solid waste landfill closure, finally in 2021, the last of that. The middle school roof, there's a small amount in 2019. The town hall restoration by 2021. The sewer extension, particular sewer extension project, again, 2021. New fire station, the land and the design acquisition, 2021. The new fire station by 2022. Additional costs to the new fire station by 2024. The town hall roof in 2020. And then you'll see the new ones in FY 2018, which extend out to 2035. The West Main Street Bridge and Culvert replacement, which was just approved in 2017. The DPW Operations Center, which has been completed again from 2017, but the debt going out. The highway garage, which I've asked the superintendent for the next meeting that the board has to give a brief status update on that project. And then the park storage and maintenance building, again, is still in the design phase, that project. So through the chair, again, appreciate the question that was brought up at the last meeting. This will at least give the public a sense, and we'll use this at the capital planning committee as well, as to sort of what, for the town projects, the existing debt service on debt exclusions looks like.
I wasn't here for the meeting where the information was requested, but I assumed that you wanted debt exclusion information, not,
Yeah.
but if you want everything, all borrows, our financial advisor has forwarded a rather significant spreadsheet to Barbara, and she'd be more than willing to share that with you. But that would include all debt. Now, this is just two things to note. This is, like, as Robert said, non-school debt exclusions, existing debt exclusions, but the ones in FY18 are estimated amounts, because we obviously haven't gone out for bonding yet.
Right.
And then we're not showing anything that might come on, because I know, like, there's a fire engine, I think that's likely to be in this year's capital request, you know, and so, and anything else that might be significant.
Right.
Is it possible for you to layer in the capital, like the high school and then the middle school?
I'd need the numbers from them,
Okay.
and I don't have the amortization schedules, but I imagine Bill could get them for
Yeah.
me.
Because I think that would give the complete picture I think everyone's looking for,
Right.
particularly with the field question. And then
I don't typically get that information until it's the
No,
budget
it's
time,
understandable, yeah.
so he has to share his amortization schedule.
They had like an overlay, okay.
Right.
Schools.
Because I know we're still paying for the middle school debt portion.
Oh, we definitely
There's
are.
the high school.
It's
and then
a little less
there's
than
the
$1 million.
proposed-
Yes, so it's still significant, right?
Yeah. Okay. This is good, thank you.
Thank you.
So, just to conclude on that point, as you can see, though there are some things coming off, just last year alone, there are considerable projects pending, and Ms. Cabri is correct that if we follow the capital plan for FY 2020, the fire department has a considerable, fire truck, and as the board's aware, the earlier discussion we had about water loops and so forth, which are important, again, sort of begin to fall into at least the debt. So, the last item as amended to the agenda to the selectmen was the November BOS meeting schedule. As luck has it, the board's first meeting is the day of the election, and for the Secretary of State, you can't have any public meetings in a polling place, which the town hall is, so the first meeting in November needs to be rescheduled. And then I know normally the third Tuesday this time is the week of Thanksgiving, and I know there are some challenges there, and as you mentioned, Madam Chair, with Selectman Hillman being out in November, so.
Right, so we've got the election on November 6th. We won't have a quorum for our normal third
Okay.
Tuesday.
Right.
So we were thinking maybe 13th, was it the Tuesday, the following
Yes.
Tuesday?
Yep.
Meet, and then leave the second meeting of November open.
Mhm.
We'll kind of keep in the back of our heads that the 27th, if something's needed, bear in mind that we're having a meeting on December 4th, so unless it's really hot,
Okay.
And then December 4th, of course, is the tax classification hearing.
Yes.
So is that acceptable? November 13th? Tuesday,
Yeah,
November 19th?
Absolutely.
And
Yeah,
it's getting late.
I'm just wondering if we have the tax classification hearing on the 4th, if we want to really look at meeting on the 27th.
Well,
Try
if
to
we
help
have,
the
a lot of action items there, yes, we should meet on the 27th, because I'd like December 4th to not be so heavy that no one can concentrate on the tax classification.
Agreed, and I will check with
Yeah.
the departments.
So-
We have a meeting tomorrow.
So right now, let's plan on
The 13th.
the 13th, and then we can talk more on the 13th.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, oh, good drive. Yeah, and then we can talk again on the 13th as to,
Okay. Yep.
but yeah, so we'll say tentative on the 27th.
Okay. Yep.
All right.
That concludes my report. Thank you for your time and
Okay.
patience this evening.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
All right. So Robert and I met last week with, what were their names?
Selectman Lucy Wallace, who's the chair of the Harvard Board of Selectmen, and then Mr. Norman
Victor Norman.
Victor
Yes,
Norman,
yes.
who is the chair, has been appointed the chair of their disposition committee. And Selectman Wallace had wanted to meet with her counterpart, the chair, Selectman Livingston, to sort of talk about what they have started to do.
Right. I just needed the name.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, because I couldn't read the writing that I had. So as discussed in the memo that had been sent to all of us last month. So what they're trying to do is they're being very proactive, and they're looking into and implementing a plan for the reintegration of the Harvard historical property of Devon's being returned. And so they've created a 9-person committee. I am missing, so it's the planning board, the economic development director, town manager, and 4 residents, 2 of which is from Devon's, and I'm missing a couple people, I can't remember. I couldn't read, I used my screen on my phone. Yeah, I'm not doing that again.
Madam Chair, I think it was 2 selectmen.
Well, yes, because they're a board of 5, and the
Yeah.
2 selectmen, yes. So basically what they're going to try to do is develop the pros and cons of the reintegration, and then to create an RFP to hire a consultant specifically equipped to handle this type of scenario. So what I've just handed to you, this paper, is the charge that the Board of Selectmen gave to their committee. Okay? So what they discussed also is that, they're talking to Shirley, and obviously talking to us, so that we can all kind of start, forming our own little committees. But as far as down the road, would we all want to use like the same consultant to develop a plan to submit it to the state by, I think it was 2032, so that they can have their year and then decide as to whether or not to return the land. They also brought up the fact that basically the state could decide next week, Harvard, Shirley, Ayer, you've got your land back. However, Mass Development has not been released. Mass Development still owns that property, but we get to provide the services.
Sounds like something the state would do.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's the big clue. Mass Development is there. Even if 5 years down the road, state decided to give us back the property, Mass Development is there until the state says, okay, your job is done. So basically, Mass Development was kind of, so it was, and I'm getting a little tired trying to read my notes, but the purpose, one of the purposes of doing Devon's after it closed was to make it more job creation, thus being kind of non-political. Now, so you've got everybody kind of going to Shirley or to Harvard to Ayer, which, may or may not be a little bit of an inconvenience for them. But they really, so they can come over here and vote, and I'm sure they even show up for like a local ballot election, but they're not necessarily invested in it yet because they're Devons. So there becomes that problem. So, and of course, with the political climate and everything like that, they're probably going to want to be a little bit more invested. So it is a good idea to come up with a committee, a similar committee. I definitely recommend residents from Devon's and resident from Ayer, similar makeup as far as the way Harvard does it. Of course, it would have to only be one Board of Selectmen in our case. Otherwise, it's always going to be posted, which is fine. So that kind of led me into, in my notes, what I kind of did was, basically I started asking myself questions as to some of the things that really long-term what this comes down to is you got 3 towns, 2 counties. I didn't even think about the fact 2 counties run through Devon's. Mm-hmm. The current commercial properties, what is their agreement in regard to taxes? How long is their contracts? Their contracts are with Mass Development. So this is a much bigger and deeper. It was a great conversation. I came out of there really impressed because I was like, that is the best, most comprehensive conversation I have ever had about Devon's. Because all I ever hear is people saying, well, we want the tax revenue. I'm all for it, but you forgot one part. You also got expenses, you know? And so, you know, everybody keeps saying, well, we want that tax revenue, you know, and I absolutely agree, but now we've got to figure out what's the services. Then you got to figure out down the road, you know, how do you integrate those people? What's the best way? What if there's a house built on 2 properties? It literally could be built, because the Army wouldn't have cared when they built the house as to what historical property line it was in. So for all you know, it's in the middle of 2 towns. Now what do you do? So they also mentioned that as we go through the process and in the coming years and whatnot, there may be things that we have to tweak. Example, you know, a house built on two town lines, you know, who gets, you know, who's going to claim it, you know? So there's a lot, and it was very interesting, and I kind of wrote my notes, and I started asking myself any question that I could think of, right down to people going to have to change their zip code. And will a new zip code have to be created? I mean, this is how I just started asking all these questions. So what I think that we should do for right now is start the formation of a committee.
I agree.
And then, you know, looking at what they've charged the committee, which is probably, you know, pretty similar to what I would assume that this board would want to do, and then come back and figure out what we do next. But it was a very thrilling conversation. I really walked out of there very pumped. I was like, oh, get away from me. I'm going to go, you know, I'm pumped. I can solve this. This is great. Started asking more and more questions. I was, oh my goodness. One of the things that Harvard also brought up is like their fire department is on call.
Yeah.
They can't handle commercial. Ours, of course, can. So is there a future regionalization down the road? I mean, it just everything that you could think of. First of all, I'm very impressed with what they discussed. You know, and I told them we were going to copy them because I think they've set a wonderful model for us to follow.
Like the best form of flattery.
Yeah, and but just everything that just gets discussed, and things like, you know, I mean, Mark, who we know knows this stuff, could say, you know, all you have to do is this and this and this. Might be a piece of that puzzle you're missing, you know. She was get tired and dry. So this committee would obviously be a long-term committee, as we know. As far as it was also mentioned, like, you know, would we be able to get any money from like Mass Development to hire the consultant? And, you know, is it beneficial to have separate consultants or one consultant? And right now, I'd say it would be better to have one.
I agree. Yeah.
Because that one would be able to connect the puzzle.
Yeah.
You know, so I could send you my little notes, my questions, if you'd like. This is like I said, this is the what they charged their committee with, and they were going to send us minutes. They didn't send us a copy of the minutes, but they are on the town of Harvard's website, and I actually read them. Mm-hmm. First of all, very, very coherent minutes. I mean, it's like they had a courtroom reporter in there. That's how in-depth they were. It was like, wow. I'm not criticizing. I'm just seriously.
You're looking at
I'm like, no, I'm only looking at you because I'm trying to keep the conversation going. No, when you look at it, it's very impressive. And I was like, they had to have had a courtroom reporter in there, you know, dictating and everything. So, but I liked it. I wouldn't like it all the time, but I liked it. I think they've had 3 meetings. They may have had their 4th meeting now, and maybe the minutes have been posted. Because you were really, especially for our purposes, really getting to see the full conversation. So So I would say that, really it's department heads, and at least I would say two Air residents, 2 residents from Devon's, and Selectmen.
I think it sounds great. I know, so in the original, the last Vicksburg Square proposal, the Finance Committee at that time, we were trying to do get that same type of information, and we learned a lot of interesting things about the utilities over there.
Oh, yeah.
And so it is a deeper conversation, just simply, yeah, I think I'll need another police officer, or, that we can easily absorb that with maybe one more head count.
Right.
So I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
I think we should move forward at, maybe get through fall town meeting, and then we can have a discussion when Selectman Hillman comes back. Put everything together,
Well, I think-
or do you want to just?
I think we can move forward. I think if we start the formation, first of all, I think he's for it because it got mentioned before. But I think we should start getting this process started. So my recommendation at this particular moment is, Robert, can you form it? I can't even talk anymore. It's so dry. When we come back on
The 13th?
the 13th, we could, maybe come up with what would we charge the committee with, and then maybe you can come up with a blueprint as to how we can get a hold of a Devon's member and 2 Air members. They were very kind of picky as far as when they were picking out who residents who were going to be on the committee. And to be honest with you, because they want new voices.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be good. See what criteria they use.
Right.
For the residents.
So then, we can kind of be reviewing as far as what they charged, because they had actually had a town election that got brought to this and everything. And as to what we want to charge and start developing it so that when this committee's ready to go, they'll have their instructions and whatnot.
How long do they do the memberships on the committee? Did they talk about that at all? Because to your point, it's a real long process.
Right. I seem to think, and I'm hoping I wasn't looking at something else, that there was no dates on them. I don't think they were it was almost like they were an advisory committee like we did with the APAC, with not APAC, but ATSAC. So there was not necessarily an end date.
Yeah, I didn't see any lengths to the point.
But we'd have to get back to you.
Just curious.
Yeah. Because obviously, nobody's, then I guess they meet once a month, which actually sounds reasonable, especially in the beginning, and then later as it gets, more in depth and closer to anything, they can obviously step it up, but once a month, especially for now, would be good.
Okay.
They kind of kept it targeted because, and it was really interesting even reading some of the conversations that they had in the meeting minutes too. And one of the big things is that really you have to have your department heads in there because they're the ones that are going to know and how to do how to ask the questions and find out all this stuff. And it is very, very eye-opening to even think of some of the contracts that might be out there. How would they be impacted? Because if, of course I can't, 5 years ago I could have probably pulled out 5 historical Devon's maps, but now I can't find one. Is that, we, depending on, where they are in the historical lines, is we don't want to run them out. We wouldn't want to run out of business who, because of whatever contract they have with over at Mass Development as far as tax incentives or whatever, in pulling them into our jurisdiction. I mean, obviously we would want to adjust things, but we wouldn't want to make it so bad that they wanted to leave us because then we lose that. So it was fascinating. I was really pumped up in that meeting. I was like, wow. And then, like I said, it just got me into, just all sorts of questions. And then some of those buildings, would one of them be good for like the senior center? And oh my God, would that mean we'd have another polling station? Would we eventually move town hall? Or I mean, my mind went, which was actually fun. So it was very fascinating. It was very interesting having this conversation. So I think that this is going to be a very positive and, like I said, it was the most comprehensive conversation I've ever had about Devon's, other than, well, we want the tax revenue.
That's good.
So,
Awesome.
well,
thank you.
yeah. So other than that, do you have anything else?
I myself do not.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of October 2nd, 2018.
I will second.
We really met on October, oh, it's still the 16th, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair says aye. Meeting minutes approved. A late one.
I actually just caught a typo in it. In the minutes, I said a motion was made by Jay Livingston and seconded by Scott Hood and seconded by Janice Livingston to approve the meeting minutes of September 11th.
We must have seconded it simultaneously.
Yeah, so if you, with your permission, I'll just strike the next seconded and then reprint them. And Scott, I can do
Yeah,
that
that's
right
fine.
now.
I'm
You
fine.
can sign them
Yeah.
so I can get them up. Sorry, I just caught that. A lot of
Well,
seconding.
A lot of seconding. So, all right.
That's
Anything else?
I'll make motion to adjourn at 10:02 p.m.
Seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair says aye. Good night, everyone.